Chapter 101. Conqueror's Hockey Entanglement. After more than 10 days of traveling, Carl and his party arrived at Beehive Island. Finally back. Banquet, have a banquet. Carl heard the noise outside the cabin and walked out of the door, looking towards the Beehive Island in the distance. You should be able to take a good rest now. Well. Carl stretched, turned his head and smiled, looking at Linlin next to him. By the way, Linlin. Charlotte Linlin tilted her head and looked at him. Conqueror's Hockey, can you do it? Charlotte Linlin didn't expect Carl to ask this question. What, Carl, do you want to learn? Only Captain Rox seems to be able to do this. The strength of Golden Lion and others has not yet reached its peak. Currently, only Rox is entangled by Conqueror's Hockey on the entire ship. Yeah? It seems that I have to go there in person. Carl looked at Rox's car, the Zebek. After arriving on the island, he separated from Charlotte Linlin and went to look for Rox on his own. Captain Rox. It's Carl, what's wrong? Not long after Rox arrived in the room, he saw Carl, who was visiting, walking out of the room. Carl did not hesitate, but went straight to the point. I would like to ask you how to use Conqueror's Hockey. Rox looked Carl up and down. Ha ha ha, that's good. You are the vice captain now after all. Come here. Rox led Carl into the room. A stack of paper was taken out from a cabinet beside the bed. This is how Conqueror's Hockey winds up. If anyone wants to see it, you can give it to them. I didn't expect Rox to be quite generous. Carl took it and glanced at it, and then looked at Rox. What he didn't expect was that it wasn't that Rox was unwilling to teach, but that many people didn't come to ask. Okay, thank you, Captain Rox. If there's nothing else, I'll leave first. Now that his goal has been achieved, what he wants most now is to go back and practice. Good. Watching Carl go away, Rox muttered something, then showed a mysterious smile and walked into the room. I hope your strength can become stronger. After Carl left Rox's room, he first came to Charlotte Linlin's station. When he saw Linlin in the yard, he shouted loudly. Linlin. Carl, didn't you go to find Rox? Why did you come back so soon? Charlotte Linlin looked at Carl with a questioning look on her face. In her mind, it seemed that time had just passed, and she was back so soon. I've got it. Let's take a look together. Well. You're quite capable, Carl. Carl quickly walked into the yard and pulled Linlin to the stool. The two of them put the paper on the table and studied it carefully. This research lasted until late at night. Gulala. Brother Carl, you asked me to come. Brother Newgate, come and take a look at this. When he saw that it was getting dark, he sent someone to notify Newgate. Upon hearing this, Newgate strode towards them. Well, this is. The first time Newgate saw this piece of paper, he knew it was Conqueror's Hockey winding cultivation method. The whole person was a little shocked. I thought to myself, Carl is not stealing Rox, right? Because only Rox on Rox Pirate can be entangled by Conqueror's Hockey. Brother Carl, where did this come from? This is what I asked Captain Rox for today. Newgate nodded aside, so that's it. Don't worry, he said anyone can practice. I just happened to feel a little bit sorry for spending a lot of money on Lighton Island. Carl felt a little embarrassed when he talked about Lighton Island. Gulala. Compared to this, those are small change. Newgate learned that it was taken from Rox and had permission, so he naturally sat down and watched it together. Lord Carl, the dinner is ready. When everyone was fascinated, the servant next to them came to stop them. Carl looked at Newgate aside and stretched out his hand to signal. Brother Newgate together. Gulala. Then it's better to be respectful than to obey. After drinking and eating for a while, several people still studied the use of Conqueror's Hockey winding on the spot. Although the strength of these people is not at the pinnacle of strength in the true sense, they are now among the top powerhouses in the sea. In their one night of research, they were able to get a rough idea, but they were a little unskilled. Brother Newgate, try it. After getting something novel, it is inevitable to try it out, and the sun has risen now. And despite studying it all night, no one felt sleepy. Gulala, that's exactly what I meant. Several people walked on the moonwalk and arrived at an isolated island near Beehive Island. Charlotte Linlin looked at the two people on the island from the shore, and her eyes fell more on Carl. The two stood facing each other in the middle of the island. The system is now Conqueror's Haki fused with rocks. Buzz. Carl's whole body momentum changed, his eyes flashed with red light, and crimson ripples appeared in front of him. A powerful sense of pressure shook the creatures on the island and fainted one after another. Even the people as far away as the Beehive Island were inevitably affected by it. Hey hey hey, what happened? Who's laying around Conqueror's Haki? This powerful and unfamiliar Conqueror's Haki directly woke up the Golden Lion who was still sleeping. Ha ha ha, as expected of Carl, Conqueror's Haki is growing so fast. Rox was pleasantly surprised by Carl's improvement, because the stronger his men were, the better he could complete his plan. Hey, look, the sky is cracking over there. Everyone on Beehive Island looked at the sky above the island in front and left, and a crack slowly opened across the sky. Brother Carl, your strength has grown rapidly. Newgate naturally also unleashed his Conqueror's Haki. The two Haki met in the air, and a violent sizzling sound resounded throughout the island. Brother Newgate is coming. Ulala. Brother Carl, I've been waiting for a long time. An excited smile appeared on Carl's lips. Legs darting in Newgate's direction, right fist raised with Conqueror's Haki wrapped around it. Not to be outdone, Newgate raised his Kong Yunki and slashed straight at Carl. Boom. Sure enough, the fist and the blade did not collide in the next second. There is a gap visible to the naked eye, and it is obvious that the two of them have understood Conqueror's Haki. Ulala. Ha ha ha. The two of them laughed out loud as they felt the strange Conqueror's Haki running wildly inside their bodies. Level 8 punch. Elbow to the heart. Empty shock. Seeing such a strong power, the two of them fought even more excitedly. Newgate wielded a knife with his right hand and punched with his left hand, and had a close fight with Carl. Afterimages appeared in the air. It was obvious that the speed of the two attacks was too fast, leaving afterimages in people's retinas. Boom boom boom. The sounds of the two fighting could be heard as roaring sounds. All the small animals on the island had already been killed by the huge roar. After only a few dozen minutes of fighting, the island collapsed. Congratulations. Same joy, Brother Carl. I didn't expect this to be Conqueror's Haki. The power is really incredible. Carl couldn't help but nodded when he saw Newgate praising him. The power of Conqueror's Haki entanglement is really not that strong. The news about Golden Lion was not concealed. When he learned that the two were experimenting with Conqueror's Haki entanglement, he immediately came to Carl and took away the Conqueror's Haki entanglement training manual. Chapter 102. Redfield. Just when Carl and his party were about to arrive at Beehive Island, an uninvited guest arrived on Cake Island. Bang! No T was practicing on the shore. He felt the strong man's aura and immediately stopped him. However, he threw a punch with all his strength, but it was easily blocked by the mysterious man in front of him. He immediately retreated to the coast and questioned the mysterious man in front of him. Who are you? Nuoti didn't expect that such a strong person would appear in such a remote place as Cake Island. I was just passing by. Young man, don't be so angry. A tall and thin figure, wearing a rose-red shirt and blood-red trousers, leather shoes with gold rims on his feet, a wide red cloak with a plaid pattern on the inside, a blue rose around his neck, and a hand holding an umbrella with a thin handle. Oh, it turns out you are Carl's subordinate. How do you know who you are? Looking at the mysterious man in front of me, whom he had never seen before, he actually said his name easily. You must know that since they went to sea, they have never appeared in Marine's eyes. They have no bounty yet. Here's the cake. It seems like Carl didn't have a pure heart when he joined Rock's Pirate. He even prepared a backup plan. I want to meet Carl. The visitor was none other than Redfield, who was constantly looking for his companions. Awakening at a young age, the top-level telepathic color can read the enemy's inner thoughts. Influenced by Brooke, he went out to sea to find companions with whom he could truly rely on each other. But after several years of searching, I didn't meet a true companion. Instead, I saw all kinds of ugly hearts. He went to sea at the age of 25 and has been searching for 3 years at sea. I just came to New World this year. I happened to pass by Cake Island and read the hearts of some people on the island. He found that they were all kind-hearted. He didn't know why, so he especially wanted to meet the people who built this island. You wait. After a brief fight, Noti knew that he was no match for the man in front of him. Moreover, this person's attitude is relatively kind so far. He reached out and took out the phone bug from his arms and called Carl. The Golden Lion had just taken away the Conqueror's hockey entanglement training manual, and Carl had just sat on the stool and took a sip of water. I saw the phone bug ringing. Bola, Bola, is this Mr. Carl? I am No T. No T, what's the matter? A stranger came to Cake Island, named Redfield, and said he wanted to meet you. He immediately told Carl what happened. When Carl heard that it was Redfield, he immediately thought of this aloof Red. Okay, let him wait for a few days, I will be there soon. Understood, Lord Carl. You heard me, please wait on the island for a few days. After No T hung up the phone, he looked at Redfield in front of him. That's okay. Let's go, I'll prepare a guest room for you. Seeing that Redfield didn't care, he didn't say anything, picked up the clothes on the side and led him towards the Cake Island. Lin, it seems I'm going to go to Cake Island. What's wrong? Carl, has anything happened at Cake Island? Hearing what Carl said, Lin couldn't help but worry about the children on Cake Island. Ha ha ha, it's okay. Maybe it's a good thing. He thought for a moment that if Redfield joined them, it would really be like pie in the sky. Oh well. Do you need me to follow you? Carl looked at Charlotte Lin with a concerned look on her face and knew that she was caring about the child. After thinking about it, I realized that there was nothing going on the island now, so I agreed to her. We can go there together. Well. Seeing Lin laughing happily, Carl also smiled gracefully. The two of them flew quickly toward Cake Island on Zeus. On the Cake Island side, under the leadership of No T, Redfield walked into the guest room of Cake Island. By means of mind reading along the way, and what he saw made him feel that Carl might be the like-minded companion he had been looking for so long. Because he saw equality, freedom, and even kindness on the island, which was something he had never seen before. Then Redfield looked at No T aside. How long have you been following Carl? No T turned his head and glanced at him with a somewhat evil look. What happened in less than a year? Redfield thought to himself. Isn't there a ready-made person right in front of him? What kind of person do you think Carl is? I can't tell you, but he's very nice to me anyway. Redfield was speechless when he heard this answer. It seemed that the man in front of him couldn't bring out any more value. Because he was either thinking about training or dueling, and there was nothing useful at all. Here we are, right here. Don't wander around on this island. No T warned him after taking him to the guest room on the island. Okay, I'm very satisfied. Redfield nodded, responding to him, and then looked at the approximately 100 square meter guest room in front of him. The first half of New World. Back to the Sabodi archipelago. Davis and others have arrived at the Sabodi archipelago. Now we don't have so much time to hang out, so we have to seize the time, simply rest, buy some items and go out to sea. The pirates on the ship waited for the ship to dock and then began to disembark to buy various supplies. Understood, Lord Davis. Davis looked at the pirate flag on the ship before disembarking. By the way, take off the pirate flag first to avoid trouble. Watching the pirate flag fall little by little, he walked on the Sabodi archipelago with confidence. When he walked on island number 1, he saw two people fleeing. You two, don't run. Stop, you brat. Davis pulled out the pistol from his waistband. Bang bang bang. Thump thump. Quickly retreat. They saw someone blocking the front and quickly evacuated with their men. Who? What's going on? Why did they chase you away? But when Davis lowered his head and looked carefully at the child's face, he figured it out. This is my child Morgan's. He ate devil fruit at some point on the island today and became like this. Those are human traffickers. Seeing my child become like this, they want to arrest him and sell him for money. Davis straightened up and thought for a moment. I understand. Morgans. Where have I heard this? In fact, this is because Carl told them about some famous figures that may appear in the future in the previous meeting. Although they don't remember it very clearly, they have an impression in their minds. You guys come with me first. Although Davis could not remember who they were for the time being, since he had this impression in his mind, he was sure that these two people were of certain importance. Because irrelevant things in his mind will not have such a deep impression. Anyway, he was a pirate, so he was taken away directly and no one came to ask. And it would definitely be right to take them away first. Oh well. Morris didn't dare to refuse when he looked at the tall Davis in front of him. After all, he had seen the method just now with his own eyes. The shooting skills of the big man in front of him are not average. After Davis took them on the boat, he waited for the purchaser to return. After everyone was present, and with an order from Davis, the ship sailed to Clockwork Island. Chapter 103. A few hours passed, and Carl and Charlotte Linlin arrived at Cake Island. Looking at the Cake Island in front of me. Well. No one will bother us this time, right? Carl was a little hesitant. After all, no one knew when rocks would call them back. It probably won't happen this time, Carl quickly comforted. Let's go and see our daughter first. Since Charlotte Linlin's food cravings have been cured, she is now particularly friendly when she sees her children, and even her temper has improved a lot. On the way, he asked the fishmen who were building to find Clay. After sending Charlotte Linlin to the baby room, he also looked at the 3 daughters who were awakened by their arrival. Clay then sent servants to take care of him. Mother Parasparrow and others had not seen their mother for a long time, and they all excitedly ran to the nursery to play. Although when they were on the island, they would often visit their sister, but today was different. Today, they had their mother with them. And they are all children, so it is their nature to love to play. After seeing this, he turned around and went out, finding Redfield who was resting on the shore. Walked towards Redfield. Redfield looked at the unfamiliar faces that appeared on the island, and when he wanted to use mind reading to see into his heart, he was hindered. He looked at the person in front of him solemnly. Are you Carl? Yes, I am Carl. Carl looked at Redfield in front of him. Who dares to believe it? This person is said to be a top powerhouse who can defeat Whitebeard and Roger alone. An absolute admiral-level powerhouse, it can be said that he is at his peak when he goes to sea. In the original work, it seems that he was exhausted due to some battle, and then was captured and imprisoned in the underwater prison after Garp and Sengoku's encirclement. Otherwise, his legend will continue to be written. Are you interested in chatting? Carl was still thinking about recruiting Redfield into his team. How could he not want to? Certainly. Redfield wanted to hear about Car's approach to governance. I think your island is managed very well. Can you tell me about your management methods? Carl heard this and sat next to him, looking at the depths of the sea. I actually don't have any management methods. Naturally, this was not what Redfield wanted to hear. Would you mind elaborating? Carl nodded and began to speak slowly. Don't laugh when you say this. As long as they do things for me, I can give them relative fairness and don't have to worry about food. Although there will not be absolute fairness within my jurisdiction, at least they will not be bullied and oppressed. After all, as long as you can have enough to eat and have something to look forward to in life, who would choose to go to sea and become a pirate? After listening to Carl's words, Redfield also thought about these items carefully in his mind. This is also the first time I have heard of your remarks. But I have to say, you are right. It's just that I have been wandering on the sea for several years, and I have seen all kinds of things. He naturally knew what Redfield was troubled about, because it was said in the original work that Redfield could read other people's hearts. It's just that he has a system. Redfield probably can't read his mind, otherwise he wouldn't ask so many questions. That means the world is broken from the root. I want to change the world. Do you want to come? After sending out a sincere invitation, he looked at Redfield expectantly. He didn't answer, but asked again, what does the world look like in your eyes? Carl paused for a long time this time, and he thought about it carefully. Fairness, justice, everyone can have enough to eat, there will be no more oppression and bullying, no more slaves and human trafficking, no need to wear a mask to be a human being, everyone can live and work in peace and contentment, work when the sun rises, and rest when the sun sets. A beautiful world in my imagination. I have to say that this sentence deeply moved Redfield, but he wanted to test Carl's strength to see if he could do it. If possible, please let me see your strength. When Carl heard him say this, he knew in his heart that it was most likely stable. Of course you can anytime. Redfield stood up, holding the sword with steady hands, looking forward, his eyes full of confidence. I'm coming. As soon as Carl finished speaking, he ran towards him at full speed, like a violent storm. His speed was astonishingly fast, leaving afterimages in the air. At the same time, his fists were clenched and covered with armament hockey, the muscles of his arms as hard as rock. The next second, Carl's fist collided with Redfield's sword. A huge roar spread throughout the Cake Island, as if a thunder broke through the silent sky. The collision of the two forces produced a huge shockwave, uprooting the surrounding trees and sending dust flying into the air. Fortunately, the collision between the two was on the shore and did not affect the island. However, such a battle scene still attracted everyone's attention. Clay was the first to arrive at the scene and looked at Noti next to him. "What happened?" "It's okay, it's Mr. Carl and that Redfield fighting on the shore." Charlotte Linlin had already heard Carl's explanation. Although she was not very worried, she still ran out of the room and headed towards the shore. In the middle of the battlefield, Redfield felt the powerful power coming from Carl's fist and couldn't help but be secretly surprised. But he didn't flinch, but instead inspired him to have a stronger fighting spirit. "Ah!" he shouted. The sharp sword in his hand burst out with dazzling light, like a silver lightning. Carl showed no sign of weakness, wrapping his fists around armament hockey and attacking Les Redfield like a storm. The wind of the fist roared, causing ripples in the air. Each punch contained powerful power. Boom boom boom. Clang clang clang. The dust on the shore was flying, and the two figures were looming. Redfield's sword is like a silver lion majesty, always appearing at Carl's vital point at critical moments. Not to be outdone, Carl made full use of his fighting instinct and kept attacking Redfield. Carl looked at the ground being blasted with cracks everywhere, and he knew he couldn't continue like this. "Ah!" The next moment, a light flashed in his eyes and he heard a loud roar. Conqueror's hockey was wrapped around his fist, and he hit the sword hard, making a deafening sound. Redfield felt a powerful force spread throughout his body. His body flew backwards involuntarily, and a mouthful of blood spurted out in the air. He began to adjust his posture in the air, landed firmly on the ground, and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. You know, if Carl had used this power right away, he might have been defeated long ago. He walked over, took a deep breath, and extended his right hand to Carl. "If you still need someone, I think I can." A smile appeared on Carl's face, and he immediately stretched out his hands to hold Redfield's right hand firmly. "Of course you are welcome to join," Redfield said jokingly. "If you fail to do it, I will quit at any time." Carl held Redfield's right hand and paused deeply. "Don't worry, if I change my mind, you can quit at any time." The two held hands apart. "Welcome to join us. Let's get to know each other again. My name is Lux D. Carl." "My name is Baloric Redfield." Carl saw Redfield join his team and led him towards the island. "Ha ha ha, in order to celebrate your joining, we must hold a banquet today." Redfield followed, the corners of his mouth raised slightly. "Well, I haven't attended a banquet in a long time." Hearing his words, Carl laughed loudly in front. "Ha ha ha, you will vomit in the future. Ha ha ha, that's right." Looking at Clay not far away. Clay is having a party. Celebrating the addition of Redfield. Clay turned his head and looked at Carl. Before he could speak, the fish people next to him cheered. "Oh, there's a party." Clay smiled. "That's fine, just give them a break. Hurry up and get rid of the things on hand. We will have a meeting tonight." Long live Lord Carl. Soon the news of the night party spread throughout the island. A large number of fishmen swarmed towards Cake Island. Well, 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 well. Linlin saw another strong man joining the team, and naturally laughed happily beside him. Chapter 104. Clockwork Island. While Carl and others on Cake Island were having a banquet, Davis and others had also arrived at the outskirts of Clockwork Island. They were marveling at what Clockwork Island looked like. "Is this Clockwork Island?" Davis and others looked in disbelief at the tall tower rising straight into the sky in front of them. It can be seen at a glance that it was built artificially, because the top of the tower is made of various steels. "Come on, it's time for us to go up." Davis didn't bring many people, only Fields and Khalil. The other pirates surrounded the island to prevent anyone from escaping. Above Clockwork Island, there is a research room of about 1,000 square meters. "It looks like we have guests coming." Where? At just 13 years old, Guy Sikoran is already a researcher at MADS. "Boo-hoo. Give them a taste of my gas attack." In the surveillance footage, the three Davises can be seen walking towards the center of Clockwork Island. Davis discovered it when the surveillance phone bug targeted Davis and others. Then the pace picked up, urging Fields and Khalil on at the same time. It seems we have been discovered, speed up. Vegapunk roared as he looked at the three people who were destroying the passage on Clockwork Island. My bloodline factor is about to be completed. Why is it interrupted at this time? Davis had already deployed the observation hotkey, heard the roar from above, and immediately locked the position. Well, here it is. Boom. With both feet on the ground, the whole person was like a soaring rocket, arriving at the target location, destroying many walls along the way. The few people at the top looked at Davis, who suddenly appeared in front of them, and expressed shock. They were not ready yet. Who are you? Do you know about this project? It was funded by Lord Luft. Behind Davis, Fields and Khalil also walked over along the passage he opened. Tap tap. Davis turned to look at the two men. Luftide? Do you know each other? Fields doesn't care about Luft now. They already knew him before they came here. He is just an underground Dark Emperor. It's a far cry from them, considering they are members of Rock's Pirate. Who would know him for such a small character? Vinsmoke Judge. I couldn't guess how many people were there for a moment. Are they stupid or confident? You. Davis stretched out his right hand, interrupting what he was about to say, and pointed at the man with the biggest head among the crowd. You must be Vegapunk. Vegapunk watched as Davis pointed his target directly at him, pushed aside everyone and walked out. That's me. What's the matter? Davis nodded when he saw that this was the target person. That'll be easier, Fields. Okay. Fields comes out of the back right and goes right up to grab Vegapunk. Vinsmoke's expression changed drastically when he saw that they were going to capture Vegapunk. Stop. Let him go. Quinn and the young guy Sakurong immediately launched an attack on the three people in front of him. Poison gas. Brachiosaurus head hammer. Upon seeing this, Davis pulled out the pistol from his waist and fired a shot at Guy Sakurong, while signaling with his eyes. Boom. Ah. I'm Logia Gasfruit, why can you hit me? Oh, Logia, my bullets are wrapped around armament hotkey. Davis blew a smoke ring from his mouth. Call. Davis looked at Logia's ability users and zoned ancient species in front of him, and then looked at Vinsmoke in front of him. I'm sorry, you all come with me. It's better to take one person with you, or two people with you. It's better to take them all, since there are only 4 of them anyway. Khalil. Murloc Karate 3000 watts fist, bang. Khalil punched Quinn in the head, and Quinn stepped back. Khalil found the right moment to rush forward and immediately gave him a hug. Boom. He threw Quinn directly into the passage they had just come up from, and smashed him down from 1,000 meters above the ground, causing the tower standing on Clockwork Island to collapse. You're still a little weak. Khalil nodded to the two of them, then jumped down towards the passage, catching up with Quinn, who was falling. Upon seeing this, Vinsmoke immediately pressed a button from the stool nearby, and his whole body was instantly transported underground by the teleporter. Davis scratched his head, but he didn't expect that the young man with long blonde hair ran away under his nose just because he didn't notice. Well, forget it, he's not the target anyway, he just ran away. Davis raised the pistol in his hand and pointed it at Guy Thakelant, who was crawling in front of him. Do you want to run? Guy Sakurong turned his head and found the pistol pointed at him. He immediately got up and raised his hands. I won't run, I won't run. Davis blew out a smoke ring comfortably. Call. He strode forward, covered armament hotkey with his right hand, and grabbed Guy Sakulang's shoulder. I'm sorry, you don't dare either. Nodding to Fields, the two of them were about to go down the passage. Although Vegapunk still doesn't understand what their purpose is in arresting him. But he still stopped the two people who were about to go down. Wait a minute, I don't know why you arrested me, but it must be for my research. I store all my research products in this laboratory. I hope you can take it away. Davis looked at Vegapunk with a heartbroken look on his face, walked up to Fields and stretched out his left hand to grab Vegapunk. Fields is up to you. Then Davis jumped directly from the entrance of the passage. Fields scratched his head, but he didn't expect that the most tiring job would still be given to him. I still have to do physical work. While Fields was doing damage above, Khalil below had already carried the beaten and unconscious Quinn to the shore. The next step is to see Fields. Davis also came to the ship early. He first handed Guy Sakuron to his men and put him in seastone handcuffs, and then stood on the deck with Vegapunk. After all, Carl repeatedly mentioned the importance of Vegapunk to him, so he would keep watching him unless necessary. Boom boom boom. Fields first jumped to the upper level, used violence to directly destroy the junctions between the upper level and this level one by one, and then pushed the upper part directly down. Whoosh! Standing on it, looking down at the top floors, he fell to the ground at an extremely fast speed and let out a loud roar. Be careful with high-altitude missiles. Boom! As soon as the words fell, they hit the ground, setting off a huge cloud of smoke. While Fields was scratching his head, he saw Davis and others on the boat on the shore and smiled awkwardly. Walking so fast, he immediately quickened his pace, destroyed the connection of the lower layer, lifted this layer, and fell to the ground on the moonwalk. Boom! It kicked up a burst of dust when it landed on the ground, and then walked from the middle of the island to the ship. It's quite heavy. There were noises while walking. Vinsmoke, who had already run to the underground laboratory, immediately called Luft. New World, in a dark room on an unnamed island. Bola, Bola. Bah. Sir Luft, Clockwork Island was attacked by strangers. Now that Vegapunk has been captured by them, the experiment has to be terminated. Luft heard Vinsmoke's horrified words as soon as he answered the phone. Why is there such a thing? Okay, I get it. Luft hung up the phone and then summoned the attendants outside the door. Immediately send people near Clockwork Island to bring Vegapunk back to me. Yes, Lord Luft. Bang! Luft slapped the table angrily. Where did this little brat come from? He actually dared to touch my people. Chapter 105. Attack. Davis watched Fields get closer and closer, looking at him holding the huge disc above his head and lost in thought. It seems we need to make a bigger boat. No, 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 I have a solution. Vegapunk immediately came out to stop it. Davis looked at Vegapunk with a puzzled look. If you want to bring such a large area to the New World, it is really not an easy task to pass the Fishmen Island. What can you do? Vegapunk looked heartbroken at first, looking at the crumbling clockwork tower on the island that was about to collapse, and turned to look at Davis. I didn't expect you to be so violent. I just want some of the products and research materials. I don't need to take them all away. Davis had an embarrassed look on his face. Sorry, Dr. Vegapunk. Dr. Vegapunk, go up and take a look. Is there anything you need to take away? Under Davis's gaze, Vegapunk only took some products and equipment and some incomprehensible drawings from this floor. These things filled 200-meter square rooms, and even the water depth of the ship sank 1 meter. After Vegapunk finished organizing the items, Davis turned his attention to the Sabaody archipelago. Let's go. Several small boats were immediately launched on the islands around them, hanging far behind them. Davis and others were in a hurry to return, so they didn't notice the little tail behind them. Hurry up, is it that ship? Soon more than 20 sailing ships gathered behind the line. Lord Day is that ship. The little ones followed us all the way. Just as they were reporting the situation today, Davis also discovered the fleet following behind. Although Davis didn't know who was behind them, since he had been following them for so long, he figured they must be enemies. Halil also saw the fleet following behind, and after hearing Davis's words, he immediately jumped into the sea and swam toward them. Looking at the fleet in the distance, if they were not in a hurry to return to the New World, there might not be a single person left in the group opposite. I hope you are lucky. He quickly swam under their ship and then attacked the ship from the bottom. Boom! Boom! Ah, what's going on? No, Lord Day, the bottom of our ship was damaged by others. Just then, he saw Khalil on the water. Damn fishman. Halil originally planned to leave directly, but he didn't expect that the man in front of him actually scolded him. Puff! Bang! Jumped directly to the deck and looked at Day in front of him. Can you say that again? Day looked at Halil in front of him. I said you were a damn fishman. Halil's face was expressionless, but in fact he was already angry. Snapped. Lord Day. The other thugs looked at Dayda's head being slapped to pieces by the strange fishman in front of them, and they suddenly screamed in horror. Clang. Day's body lay on the deck. I didn't want to waste my time. He looked at the bloodline in his hand. The fishman is doing karate, and the river is over his shoulder. Halil floated on the water, watching the more than 20 ships sink slowly, nodded with satisfaction, and then returned. Click. I said, did those people provoke Khalil? Fields was leaning on the deck eating an apple. Seeing that the matter was over, Davis turned and looked directly ahead of the deck. Who knows? In short, our mission is to return to the New World as soon as possible. I don't want anything to happen on the road. Fields certainly doesn't want something to happen. Don't worry, in New World we may be afraid of this or that. But in the first half, apart from Marine, there may not be anyone worth worrying about. Be careful on the 10,000 years ship. Keep an eye on those 3 Vegapunk guys. Seeing Davis change the subject, he immediately started talking about Vegapunk. I don't know if he is really brave. He is actually doing experiments on the boat. It seems that he has not been kidnapped. Clang! Halil suddenly jumped up from the sea, interrupting the 2 men's speech. Khalil, you are back. Sorry for the delay. It doesn't matter, let's speed up the voyage. I hope there won't be any accidents before we get to New World. World Government Marijoy, in a room with celestial dragons. I'm going to the Sabaody archipelago. Sir, St. Malros, can't you go now? The attendants looked at Lord Malros as if they had to go, and quickly tried to dissuade him. Because of rocks, Sabaody archipelago is now full of emerging pirates. St. Malroth didn't care. In his opinion, he was one of the descendants of the creator of this world, and no one dared to disrespect him. I don't care. If you want to protect my safety, I must go. He took out a golden pistol from his waist and pointed it at the attendant in front of him. If you don't take me, I will kill you now. After a few glances at each other, they had no choice but to take him to the Sabaody archipelago. Just as St. Malros rushed to Sabaody archipelago from World Government Marijoy, Davis and others had also arrived at Sabaody archipelago. As soon as Davis and his party arrived at the port, they found the boatmen on the shore and asked them to coat them. How long does it take to coat this boat? Looking at the stack of Baileys in Davis's hands, the boatman swallowed. My lord, it may take 5 hours. Davis dumped a wad of Baileys right on top of him. Boost. The boatman took the money, looked through it briefly, put it in his pocket, and immediately led his men to start coating the ship. Come on, sir, just take a look. The person in charge of purchasing on the ship had already set off early in the morning, and then looked at the 2 people next to him who were eager to try. Do you 2 want to go on? Think. Fields and Khalil nodded immediately. Davis looked down at the time on his watch and said to the 2 of them, I'll give you 3 hours. You must be back within 3 hours, no problem. Fields and Khalil immediately jumped off the boat and ran towards the Project Archipelago. They only had 3 hours. Because Morgans ate the albatross fruit, he couldn't control his animal state for a while. After a short period of instruction from Davis, he was able to transform between human and animal forms. Morgans ran around in the cabin and saw a room with a closed door. He pushed the door open and saw the strange man with a big head in front of him. What is this? This is the blood factor. Vegapunk saw a child coming in through the door and immediately looked at the container he was pointing at. What is the blood factor? It's a very mysterious thing. It can study the mysteries of living things. Morgans was a child after all, so he immediately lost interest in the vessel in front of him and ran to Vegapunk. What are you doing now? Vegapunk is tinkering with various reagents on the instrument in front of him. Do experiments. Can I do it? He turned to look at the child. You're still young, you can't do it. Then I can do it when I grow up. Ha ha ha, then I will teach you when you grow up. Vegapunk looked at the child in front of him, as if thinking of his childhood. He was also so curious. Chapter 106. Encounter with Celestial Dragons. 2 hours later, Fields and Khalil had almost finished shopping and were about to return to the cabin. Wow, wow. Khalil saw the crowd in the distance begin to commotion and dragged a middle-aged man who fled in a hurry. Don't run away yet. Tell me what happened. The ordinary man who was dragged raised his head and glanced at the 2 strong men, his body trembling uncontrollably. These 2 men did not look like good people at first glance. It's the celestial dragons coming. Excuse me, sir, please let me go. Looking at the pale face of the middle-aged man in front of him, who kept holding his hands, he was scared to tears, and Halil quickly let go of his hands. It's okay, I just asked you to leave. Ordinary middle-aged people would shout back to them while running if they were granted amnesty. Thank you, sir. You can leave quickly. The middle-aged man ran around a corner and disappeared. Hey, get out of the way, is that the celestial dragons? Hearing this, Halil looked at the middle of the road not far away. There was a person wearing a transparent glass cover on his head, wearing white clothes with gold rims on his body, holding a chain in his hand, riding a person, followed by a large group of people from Wuyang, coming towards this direction in a flash. Everyone around him who had no time to escape knelt on the ground. Malross Street just turned around and saw Halil standing by the road. He opened his eyes wide, as if seeing a new world, and stretched out his fingers as thick as carrots. Murloc, Fishman, I want him to be my slave. The Haitian servant next to him quickly bowed and whispered. Sir, wait a moment. Khalil and Fields. Hearing is not covered either. The two of them stood there with their hands folded, looking mockingly at the person running in front of them. Tap tap tap. It is your honor to be chosen as a slave by the celestial dragons. Let's go. The surrounding civilians were kneeling on both sides of the road, lowering their heads as if they were afraid that they were the ones being called. Halil first looked at the celestial dragons in the distance, and then stared intensely at the man in a suit in front of him. I will go if he asks me to. Who do you think you are? The man in the suit heard what Khalil said and knew that it might take some effort to catch him. Immediately shouted, How dare you disrespect Lord Celestial Dragons? Aren't you afraid of Marine Admiral? Halil glanced disdainfully at the short man in a suit, who was less than his waist. Hearing that he actually took out Marine Admiral to force him, he immediately laughed out loud. If I remember correctly, the Snow Lion Admiral died at the hands of their Captain Carl. Ha ha ha, who do you think I am? Marine Admiral, you should ask him to come over. The man in a suit looked at the fishman in front of him and refused to accept it. You. Then don't blame me. Sifulin took a step back, then extended his right index finger to point at Khalil. Finger pistol. Snapped. When Halil saw the man in front of him attacking him, he showed a ferocious smile, stretched out his right hand, grabbed his arm and lifted him up. The man in the suit tried hard to free his right hand, but instead felt his grip getting tighter and tighter. Let me go. Halil looked at the man in a suit in front of him, yelling and kicking his clothes, seeing that the clothes were visibly dirty. Anger appeared on his originally calm face. You're a little annoyed. Snapped. He stretched out his left hand and patted the man in the suit on the head, then threw the headless corpse to the ground and looked at the celestial dragons in the distance with a sinister smile on his face. The civilians nearby looked at the fishman in front of them, and actually smashed the head of the attendant of celestial dragons into pieces. He immediately stood up and ran into the distance, and the crowd instantly became commotion. Run quickly. Davis, who was far away on the shore, immediately experienced riots on the island. He quickly released observation hockey, and his expression changed drastically as soon as he sensed the situation on the island. He immediately pulled the coating boatman in front of him over. You guys quickly coat the ship. I must set sail immediately after I come back from the island. Understood, Lord Davis. Fortunately, with the power of money, the coating that was originally planned to take 5 hours was almost completed in just 3 hours. Davis then ran towards the island, where he was going to pick up Fields and others. At this time, all the civilians near Island Number 1 had already fled. After all, no one wanted to get burned. They have already seen the terror of celestial dragons. The celestial dragons ignored him and pointed directly at Halil, showing a fierce look. That damn fishman actually killed my slave. Come on, I'll make him my new slave. Another man in a suit beside him immediately ordered the people around him. Come up, you guys. The attendants and security personnel of the celestial dragons rushed towards the two of Halil. Halil twisted his neck and showed a ferocious smile. It just so happens that I haven't killed the celestial dragons yet. Although he had just left the Fishmen Island not long ago, he had also learned about the slave trade on the sea. Most of the fellow Murlocs were purchased by the so-called celestial dragons. Emloculent karate. Ah! My leg. The guard next to the celestial dragon saw Halil coming quickly towards the celestial dragons. Hurry up and call Hodi's vice admiral of the Sabodi archipelago and ask him to come over for support. At the same time, call Marshal Hill and ask him to send Admiral to support. First, he ordered the men next to him to take out telephone bugs to look for support. He stepped forward to fight because if the celestial dragons were harmed, he wouldn't survive. Ha 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 ha, that's it, you put on a good show, you slaves. Celestial dragons Malross Saint, looking at the bloody scene of several people, clapped his hands and shouted on the side. After all, in his opinion, no one would hurt him, so he seemed particularly confident. Vice Admiral Hodis on the other side of the island also received a call for help from his attendant. What? Okay, I'll be there right away. Call the Marines and head to Island Number 1 immediately. Yes, Hodis Vice Admiral, Naval Headquarters. Do you know who it is? Okay, I get it. Bada. After receiving the call, Marshal Hill quickly thought about which nearby Marine admiral was closest to the Sabodi archipelago. Bola, Bola. Hey, is this Wenhu Admiral? The celestial dragons were attacked in Sabodi archipelago, please go and check. Understood, Marshal Hill. I hope celestial dragons doesn't cause any trouble. On the Sabodi archipelago side, Halil has arrived in front of the celestial dragons. Malrose Street, with a runny nose, got down from the man and shot the man first. Pointing the golden pistol at Khalil. I want you to be my slave. Kneel down quickly. I want to step on you. Halil looked at the arrogant celestial dragons in front of him and felt a little incredible. Is there anyone so stupid? Aren't you afraid of death? Celestial dragon said nothing and fired 3 shots, hitting Halil in the chest. Bang bang bang. Clang, clang, clang. Halil looked down at the clothes he brought from his hometown in front of him. There were 3 big holes in them. He slowly looked up at the celestial dragons in front of him and became expressionless. You really deserve to die. Whoosh! The next second, Halil waved his huge fin right hand, directly slapping the celestial dragons away, and the glass on his head exploded in an instant. Boom! The body of celestial dragons smashed into the house behind. Shot. Bang bang bang. Just when Halil was about to give chase, a large number of Marines poured into the street on the right. Golden Light Spell Defensive Shield. Fields immediately stepped forward and used a golden light spell to condense a huge shield to protect the 2 people behind him. Let's go first. I think he's angry, wait a minute. Of course Khalil knew what Fields was talking about, and they could not delay the island for too long. But what the celestial dragon said just now and what they did made him feel sick. He strode over, pulled the celestial dragons out of the rubble, held it under his arm, and ran towards the shore with Fields. Chapter 107. Naval Headquarters is shocked when Davis first arrived at the shore. He saw the hurried Vice Admiral Hodith. Seeing that he was about to run towards the island, he immediately raised the gun in his hand and pointed it at him. Don't move, Mr. Marine. Hodith Vice Admiral felt the fatal threat from the gun and turned to look at the person blocking his way. Who are you? In Davis's perception, Fields and the 2 were getting closer and closer to here, so he naturally had to delay Hodis first. Buy them time. I don't know who I am, but it should be a pirate. The boats on the shore are also ready, and they can dive directly just waiting for them to come over. Hodith smiled as he listened to the footsteps getting closer. It seems that your goal has been achieved. Although he knew that the celestial dragons were under attack, he did not know that they actually dared to capture the celestial dragons. If he knew that the celestial dragons were in Khalil's hands, he might have fought Davis, right? Tap tap tap. Let's go. Fields and Khalil ran towards the ship as soon as they appeared in the port. Hodith saw a look of horror on the face of the man Khalil was holding under his arm. Celestial dragons? The next second Hodith attacked Khalil. 6 styles, shave, finger pistol, boom. Clang. Davis also shot the fatal shot into Hodith's finger. Swish, swish, swish. Khalil heard the sound and stopped. Phils also stood beside Khalil and looked at Hodis. Leave it to me. You go first. I'll see you at the Fishmen Island later. Fields took the celestial dragons, looked at Khalil and nodded. Be fast. Khalil smiled ferociously, and at the same time twisted his neck, making a clicking sound. Do not worry. Fields and Hodis turned towards the shore and were about to set sail. Hodith immediately rushed to Davis. Don't go. Bang. Hodith, who was running at the next moment, was blocked by Khalil's whip leg. Your opponent is me. Hodis watched as the ships in the distance began to gradually submerge under the water, and focused on the fishman in front of him. Do you know what you are doing? Hodis glared at the fishman Khalil, his voice full of anger. Certainly. Seeing Khalil's indifferent attitude made Hodis even angrier. He knew that if the celestial dragons were captured in the Sabodi archipelago, the entire Sabo-di archipelago would be affected, and countless civilians would suffer. Finger pistol. Hortus roared angrily, shooting his fingers at Hariel like bullets. Level 8 punch. Elbow to the heart. Not to be outdone, Halil hit Hortus in the chest. Bang. The two attacks collided with a loud noise, and Hortus and Khalil each took a few steps back. They both already feel each other's power. Hortus rubbed his chest, knowing that he couldn't be careless. He didn't expect that this fishman was quite strong. Iron fist. Hodith roared, swinging his fist towards Khalil. Level 8 boxing. Move the hammer. Halil waved his arm and hit Hodis hard. Bang. The two attacks collided with each other, making a muffled sound. Neither Hortus nor Khalil stopped, they continued to fight fiercely, their speed getting faster and stronger. The surrounding air seemed to be torn apart by their battle, making bursts of roaring sounds. Their fight attracted the attention of the people around them. They stopped their escape and watched the fierce battle. They were shocked by the strength of the two men. Fields and others have slowly entered the depths of the sea. Bang. Khalil sensed that Fields and the others had dived to a depth of several hundred meters. After gradually losing the control range of observation hockey, he ran towards the seaside after a brief collision and separation. Plop. Jumped into the sea and headed straight for Fields and the others. Hortus knew something was wrong from above, and immediately called Marshal Hill at Naval Headquarters. Marshal Hill, there is an emergency in the Sabo-di archipelago. The celestial dragons have been kidnapped by the fishmen. I need your support. Hodith's voice was urgent and tense. What, the celestial dragons were kidnapped? Marshal Hill's voice was full of shock. He knew that if something happened to Tinlin, the entire marine would face tremendous pressure. Yes, I need you to send troops to support immediately, otherwise the Sabo-di archipelago will fall into chaos. Hodis said anxiously. I will send troops to support immediately. We must find out who kidnapped the celestial dragons and prevent them from being harmed. After hearing Marshal Hill's order, after hanging up the phone, Hodis looked at the vast sea, filled with worry. But the next second he thought about it. He seemed to know the man who raised the gun just now. That man seemed to be one of Carl's men. The last time Carl came to Sabo-di archipelago, he stood on the boat and took a look from a distance. No, is it Rock's conspiracy? Hodis was shocked, and he realized the seriousness of the matter. This could be Rock's pirate's revenge. He hurriedly picked up the phone bug and reported it to Marshal Hill. Are you sure? Marshal Hill's voice was full of seriousness. It is certain that these people were his men when Carl passed by the Sabo-di archipelago last time. Hodith's voice was firm, and he believed in his own judgment. Trouble. Marshal Hill's voice was full of worry. He knew that if the Rock's pirate captured the celestial dragons, there was no telling what big events would happen. Okay, I get it. Hodith looked at the phone that was cut off again, filled with more worries. He knew that if the celestial dragons could not be rescued soon, the Sabo-di archipelago would face a huge crisis. And if the Rock's pirate captures the celestial dragons, there's no telling what kind of big event will happen. He immediately took his marine back to the Sabo-di archipelago area to prepare for the next big event. He must be prepared for any situation that may arise. Naval Headquarters. An emergency meeting is being held. Marshal Hill looked serious, and his eyes swept over every marine general present, including Admiral Wenhu, Kong, Sengoku, Vice Admiral Garp, Zephyr, he and others. After connecting with Rock's pirate's undercover agent, we learned that Rock's pirate has no intention of kidnapping celestial dragons recently. Marshal Shear's voice seemed relatively deep. The generals present looked at each other. They didn't understand. Since the Rock's pirate had no intention of kidnapping the celestial dragons, who did it? Marshal Hill continued. Then, which pirate under their banner should it be? I did this unintentionally, hoping that it hadn't reached Rox's ears yet, so that there would be room for change. Marshal Hill paused, and his eyes fell on Wenhu Admiral. Wenhu Admiral, I'll leave this matter to you. Wenhu Admiral stood up, his eyes firm. Understood, Marshal Hill. Marshal Hill continued to order. You just need to go to New World to investigate the news, and try not to conflict with the Rock's pirate. Then turned to Kong Admiral. Kong, you go to Sabo-di archipelago and take charge. If there is a situation in New World, you will go over to provide support as soon as possible. Understood, Marshal Hill. Kong stood up immediately, his eyes full of determination. After the meeting at Naval Headquarters, Wenhu Admiral and Kong immediately set off to New World and Sabodi Archipelago respectively. Their mission was to explore the truth and prevent the situation from deteriorating further. Sabodi Archipelago. When Hades returned to his station, he immediately summoned all the Marines. The Celestial Dragons were captured by pirates under Karl the Rock's pirate in the Sabodi Archipelago. The Sabodi Archipelago will be under martial law for the next period of time. Contact the residents of Sabodi Archipelago immediately, inform them of the situation, and ask them to stay at home as much as possible and not to go out at will. Hades hopes to reduce civilian casualties as much as possible and prevent innocent people from being implicated. At the same time, he ordered Marines to strengthen patrols and pay close attention to every corner of the Project Archipelago to prevent sneak attacks by Rock's pirate. However, Rock's pirate did not appear. After more than 10 days, the days passed day by day, and Sabodi Archipelago remained calm as usual. Hades even began to doubt his own judgment. Could he be wrong? In fact, what he didn't know was that capturing the Celestial Dragons was not Karl's original intention at all, but just Halil's own initiative. At this time, they were almost approaching Beehive Island. Chapter 108. The arrival of Vegapunk. After the battle that day, Khalil caught up with Fields and others who were sinking. At the same time, they called Karl, who was having a party at Cake Island. After the call was connected, Davis told Karl what happened. "Why did you capture the Celestial Dragons?" Karl's voice was full of surprise. He did not expect Davis's people to do such a thing. "I'm sorry, Lord Karl, I've caused you trouble," Davis whispered. He naturally knew the seriousness of this matter. But the situation at that time was quite urgent and there was no time to think about this. "It's okay, you should return to Cake Island immediately." Karl pondered for a moment and decided to let Fields and others return to Cake Island before making any plans. "Okay, Captain Karl." Davis and others breathed a sigh of relief because they had a mission and a problem. If things became uncontrollable, they all had unshirkable responsibilities. After hanging up the phone, Karl was thinking about how to use this Celestial Dragons to make a fuss. He knows that Celestial Dragons have a special identity. If he can make good use of this Celestial Dragons, it may bring him unexpected benefits. The next moment, a sly smile appeared on his lips. Celestial Dragons, it seems so. Fortunately, Fields and others did not drive towards Beehive Island, because Wenhu Admiral kept flying in the direction of Beehive Island, and the two of them happened to pass by each other. If they were heading toward Beehive Island, they might have met Wenhu Admiral by now. Perhaps the events that shocked the world later would not have happened. Karl hung up the phone and found Charlotte Linlin. Linlin, Davis and the others caught a Celestial Dragons on their way back. "What? Celestial Dragons? What can they catch?" Charlotte Linlin looked at Karl with a puzzled face. "What I'm thinking is, why not give this Celestial Dragons to Captain Rox?" Karl lowered his voice and pretended to be mysterious. "After all, it can weaken the world government's strength and facilitate our actions in the next matter." Charlotte Linlin's eyes lit up and she said excitedly, Well, I think this is okay. With less power from the world government, we have more chances of success." The two looked at each other and smiled, saying nothing. At this time, Redfield came over and asked curiously, "What are you talking about? It's so mysterious." Karl and Charlotte Linlin looked at each other and smiled without saying a word. "This matter needs to be kept secret for the time being. Sorry, I will tell you later." Redfield scratched his head. He was just curious about the two of them secretly whispering here. "It's okay, I just want to know what you are talking about. Let's go. Let's have a party." Karl stood up holding the cup and changed the topic. After Wenhu Admiral went against Davis and others, he came to the vicinity of Beehive Island. "Marshal Hill, I have arrived at Fengchao Island, but it seems that there are no signs of Celestial Dragons inside." Wenhu Admiral looked at the pirates in the Beehive Island in front of him with some confusion. "Don't act rashly yet," Marshal Hill said in a deep voice. "It's possible that we haven't arrived at Beehive Island yet. Please wait patiently." Wenhu Admiral nodded and said to the phone bug, "Understood, Marshal Hill. But I think we still need to be prepared on both sides. On the one hand, we have to continue to wait here for information about Celestial Dragons. On the other hand, we also need to send more manpower to search the nearby waters to see if there are any traces of celestial dragons. If they haven't arrived at Beehive Island yet, it would be a good idea to intercept them midway. Well, what you said makes sense. Marshall Hill agreed. Then you go to the nearest island to Beehive Island and conduct surveillance. Okay, Marshall Hill. When Hu Admiral turned around and flew towards the uninhabited island closest to Beehive Island. On the other side, Davis and others have also arrived at Cake Island. When they just passed the safe route of the desert sea, the underwater fishman immediately surfaced. Report to the inside of the island to the phone bug. It's Lord Davis who has arrived. The voice on the phone was full of respect. Receive. The fishman on the surface hung up the phone and plunged into the water. We finally arrived at Cake Island. Davis and others couldn't help but sigh as they looked at the port getting closer. Fortunately, the journey was not very dangerous, and they finally returned to Carl's territory safely. Yeah, I didn't expect this journey to be quite long. Fields looked at the port getting closer and chuckled. As soon as he arrived at the port, he saw a fishman yelling at Davis. Sir Davis, Lord Carl has been waiting for a long time. It seems that Lord Carl can't wait any longer. Davis turned to look at the two of them and said with a smile. Take them away. Fields nodded, knowing they had to report Carl as soon as possible. Davis walked in the front, followed by Vegapunk, Geisa and Quinn, as well as the knocked-out celestial dragons, and finally Fields and Khalil. Because the celestial dragons were always making a lot of noise on the ship, every time they woke up, they would be knocked unconscious by Khalil. The group of people walked quickly towards the center of the Cake Island. When they arrived at the castle gate in the center of Cake Island, Carl was already waiting for them in the hall. Carl looked at them expectantly. Back, Davis. He welcomed the return of Davis and others with a smile, and then his eyes fell on Vegapunk in front of him. This must be Vegapunk. Vegapunk is not just a science geek, he also knows a bit about the news on the market. When he saw the man in front of him, he immediately recognized him, Carl, the vice captain of Rock's pirate. Because Carl was appointed deputy captain, his bounty soared to 3 billion belly, and his reputation spread throughout the sea. They had heard his name on the road. Let them loose quickly. At Carl's signal, the men next to him stepped forward to loosen the bonds of Vegapunk and others. Dr. Vegapunk, come to me. You can research whatever you want. I will give you sufficient funds. I will not restrict your ideas. I just hope you can share your research results with me. Carl sincerely extended an invitation to Vegapunk. Vegapunk also knows that the current situation is stronger than humans. He understood that if he refused Carl's invitation, he might face a greater threat, so he decided to accept Carl's invitation. Okay, I need a research room. Vegapunk made his request. Of course, no problem. Dr. Vegapunk has already prepared it for you. Take Dr. Vegapunk to his laboratory. Carl motioned to Clay to take Vegapunk and others to the research room. Clay came out and took Vegapunk, Geisa and Quinn to a research laboratory next to Cake Island. This was also built recently and covers an area of 50,000 square meters, which is enough for daily research. Vegapunk looked at this huge research room with curiosity in his heart. He didn't know how Carl knew about him and prepared such a large laboratory for him in advance. Dr. Vegapunk has arrived. Clay next to him immediately turned to look at Vegapunk. If you need anything, you can call the guard at the door. I advise you not to think about escaping. You don't want to know the consequences of being caught. Looking at Clay with a serious face. Understand. Vegapunk and others nodded quickly. When they learned that their captor was Carl, they gave up the idea of escape. Because in New World, no one dares to openly oppose the members of Rock's pirate. What's more, Carl is also the vice captain of Rock's pirate, and his strength is unfathomable. Vegapunk took a deep breath, knowing that he could only accept this reality now, so he opened the door, walked into the laboratory, and began to explore this new environment. Are we really like this? As soon as he entered the research room, Geisa complained to Quinn beside him. Guys, what do you want to do? Quinn folded his hands and looked at the guard at the door. Do you want to run away? Of course I don't. Come in quickly, come in quickly. Geisa saw the serious eyes of the guard at the door, and Clay who had not yet left. He immediately showed a smile and pushed Quinn towards the inside of the research room. Chapter 109 Meeting Vegapunk, the task you completed this time is outstanding. Carl looked at Davis and others with admiration. Their faces were filled with pride. During this mission, they successfully brought back Vegapunk and others, and also captured a celestial dragons. This celestial dragons will be placed on the Qinglong first. He pointed at the tightly bound celestial dragons and said to Davis, because he wanted to make a fuss about the celestial dragons. I'm going to give this celestial dragons to Captain Rox later. Understood, Captain Carl. Davis replied respectfully. He stepped forward to see the celestial dragons up close, knowing that this celestial dragons would bring him a huge opportunity. You have worked hard this time. You will not have any tasks to repair on the island. Carl looked at Davis and others and said with concern. He knew that after this mission, they would not need to go to sea in a short time. You're welcome, Captain. Seeing Carl's concerned tone, Davis and others were very moved. I've prepared a banquet for you tonight to celebrate your arrival and introduce you to a new companion, Carl said with a smile. Davis completed a complete mission this time, and having a banquet was a very necessary ceremony. No problem, Captain. Phils and others replied excitedly. They knew that this was not only a banquet, but also an affirmation of their efforts and dedication, and they were also looking forward to meeting their companions. After several people saw that the matter had been explained, they turned and left. As soon as he reached the door, Davis suddenly turned to look at Carl, with a trace of doubt in his eyes, as if he wanted to ask something important. What's wrong, Davis? Carl was a little confused. He didn't understand why Davis showed such an expression. Davis asked suddenly, by the way, Captain Carl, do you know Morgans? His voice sounded hesitant. Carl was a little surprised. He didn't expect Davis and others to meet Morgans. You know, in the original work, Morgans was the ruthless man who founded the news of the world. His power and influence were among the best in the entire ocean. Morgans, have you met him? He couldn't help asking, his eyes full of curiosity and expectation. He especially wanted to know how Davis and others met Morgans and what they had experienced together. What? He's on our boat. Davis's answer instantly shocked Carl. He thought he had just seen it, but he didn't expect that he was actually on the boat. We met at Sabaody Archipelago, and then this. Davis began to describe in detail their encounters in the Sabaody Archipelago and how he met Morgans. After Davis's brief introduction, Carl knew what happened in the search for Sabaody, and a glimmer of appreciation and approval flashed in his eyes. He didn't expect Davis to hate human traffickers so much. Carl thought for a while and said to Davis, "Bring them two to me." Carl's tone was firm and serious. He knew how much help people like Morgans would bring to what he wanted to do. Okay, Captain Carl. Davis replied respectfully. Then he turned around and left. He wanted to go to the ship to bring Morgans and Mormoris first. It didn't take long for Carl to see Davis in the distance, leading two people, one large and one small, over. Their pace seemed a little uneasy, mainly because Mormoris did not expect that they would meet Carl, the great pirate of the New World. Lord Carl, this is Mormoris, and this is his son Morgans. Davis stepped forward to introduce Carl, his tone respectful. Okay, Davis, you go down first. Carl nodded and indicated that Davis could leave. He did not want anyone to interrupt the rest of the conversation. Okay, Captain. Davis saluted respectfully, then turned and left, and then his back disappeared into the distance. Only Carl and Mormoris were left. Carl touched his chin and looked at Mormoris first. His eyes were deep and sharp, as if he wanted to see the deepest thoughts in his heart through the other person's eyes. What do you do? Carl asked directly. His tone was unusually calm, as if he was asking a very simple question. Hearing Carl's words, Mormoris quickly replied, I opened a small newspaper in Sabaody Archipelago and barely made a living. His voice was slightly nervous, for fear of making Carl impatient. Carl glanced at Morgans, and then said solemnly, If I give you a chance, would you like to make the newspaper bigger? His tone was firm and seductive, as if he was extending an olive branch to Mormoris that he couldn't refuse. Mormoris, I didn't expect that there would be such a thing as pie in the sky. It would be a good idea to work under this adult, so that he would have a backer. There was a flash of joy and expectation in his eyes, and he knew that this was his chance to change his destiny, and he had to seize it. I do, Lord Carl. Mormoris took a deep breath and answered him firmly, his eyes full of courage. He knew that as long as he worked hard enough, with Carl's help, he would be able to realize his dream and establish an influential newspaper. There's a lot of interest, it just depends on whether you can grasp it, Carl said with a smile. His eyes were full of trust and expectation, and he knew that Morris should have rich experience in newspapers. After all, his son Morgan's made News of the World the most influential newspaper in the world. Carl knew that if he could join his team, it would play a crucial role in controlling the direction of public opinion. In this era full of disputes and turmoil, whoever can control public opinion can influence the direction of the world to a great extent. At this moment, Carl unleashed his momentum, trying to intimidate the two of them. However, what he didn't expect was that Morgan suddenly transformed into an albatross form. His body expanded rapidly and his wings spread out, like a real albatross standing on the ground. Oh, that's easy to handle. Carl was a little surprised. He didn't expect that Morgans would eat the zone devil fruit at such a young age. Have you developed your devil fruit? Carl looked at Morgans with a trace of expectation in his eyes. Mormouth stood up immediately when he saw Carl looking at his son. His eyes were full of tension and worry, and he knew that Carl's strength was unfathomable, and any decision he made might lead to the fate of their father and son. Master Carl, my child is still young, he can't yet. Before he could finish speaking, Carl stretched out his hand to stop him. Carl's eyes were calm and deep. You don't understand. The albatross fruit can summon homing pigeons to cultivate homing pigeons. Homing pigeons are one of the best means of delivering news on the sea. In this era of lack of information dissemination, whoever can master the fastest and most extensive means of dissemination can take the initiative in public opinion. Well, I'll give you a chance. Carl paused for a moment, crossed his arms, leaned forward, and looked at them, his eyes full of expectation. First, let your son cultivate enough homing pigeons so that they can learn to distribute newspapers and take pictures. Then there will be an event that shocks the world. I need you to videotape the whole process and broadcast it around the world. Morris was relieved to hear that his son was not asked to do anything dangerous. Fortunately, Carl did not want to take advantage of his son, but took a fancy to his son's expertise in homing pigeons. Don't worry, Mr. Carl, I will definitely spread this news to the whole world. Morris answered firmly, his eyes full of determination. He knew that this was his opportunity to prove to Carl, and he must not miss it. After a brief chat, Carl looked at Clay, who was waiting. At the signal from Carl's eyes, Clay took the two of them to the guest room to rest, and arranged for someone to collect carrier pigeons and give them to them. Their most important task in the coming days is to train enough homing pigeons so that they can learn to distribute newspapers and take photos. This is what Carl expects from them, and this is their chance to prove their worth. Clay, what's going on over there at Vegapunk? Carl asked, with a hint of concern in his tone and his eyes flickering, as if he was thinking about something. Carl's heart was full of expectations. Vegapunk, a guy called a scientific madman, claimed to be 500 years ahead of the pirate world. He really wanted to know what kind of surprise Vegapunk could bring him. Hearing Master Carl's tone, Clay's heart moved. He knew that Master Carl was very interested in Vegapunk, a science geek. However, he didn't know yet how big an impact Vegapunk would have. Reporting to Lord Carl, Vegapunk did not resist. He has entered the research institute prepared for him. Clay replied respectfully, his eyes firmly showing his loyalty to Carl. I thought to myself, Vegapunk, I hope you can bring Lord Carl the power he needs, otherwise. Carl thought for a moment, and he knew that he still needed to have a straightforward chat with Vegapunk. His eyes began to look deep, as if he was weighing something in his heart. Perhaps, Vegapunk's wisdom and ability may become a key step in realizing my ambition. You came with me. I have something to tell him alone. Carl's firm tone showed how seriously he took this matter. Understood, Lord Carl. Then Carl got up and followed Clay towards the research institute. He thought about it on the way. In the original book, Marine arranged guards for Vegapunk. Does he also need to arrange a few? He paused at the entrance of the research institute and turned to tell Clay. Clay, you will notify Halil later and ask him to lead a regiment of fishman soldiers. Their next task is to protect the safety of Vegapunk. Lord Carl, is Vegapunk really that important? Clay was a little confused. When building such a huge research institute, he had doubts. Can just a Vegapunk really have such a big effect? Carl looked at Clay and said firmly, "He is much more important than you think. You must take good care of him." "Understood, Lord Carl." Hearing Mr. Carl's serious tone, Clay immediately gave a solemn military salute, indicating that he would be notified in time. Then, he pushed open the door of the research room and led Carl inside. Chapter 110. Heart to Heart with Vegapunk. This was also his first time entering this huge research room. The layout here is based on what he remembered in Blue Star's memory, divided into dozens of departments, large and small. In the middle is a central console, which can carry out various experiments. This center console was collected and produced based on Blue Star's technology and took a lot of time and energy. Because the main job is research, the accommodation space inside is not very large and can only accommodate hundreds of people at the same time. But this is enough to meet the needs of Vegapunk, and Vegapunk does not need many assistants. "Hello Vegapunk." Carl smiled and extended his hand to Vegapunk. "Let me get to know you again, I am Carl." Carl's eyes were full of expectation. He hoped to establish a good cooperative relationship with Vegapunk, which would also help the two of them in their subsequent conversation. "Hello, Mr. Carl, I am Vegapunk." Vegapunk also responded with a smile, his eyes full of curiosity. He wanted to know what Carl wanted from him, and even went so far as to kidnap him. Carl looked at Dr. Bega, and he knew that this guy called Frankenstein had wisdom and creativity beyond ordinary people, and his research projects would have a profound impact on the entire world. Carl looked at Quinn and Geisa who were doing experiments and motioned to Clay to take them away. After the three people left the center console, Carl found a stool and sat down, looking at Vegapunk in front of him. His eyes were full of expectation, and he hoped that Vegapunk could provide him with strong support, which would speed up the time for him to complete the mission. Vegapunk also sat down and looked at Carl, his eyes full of doubts. He didn't understand why Carl came to him, but he could also feel Carl's respect and expectations for him, which made him a little uneasy. "I want to build a world that is peaceful, fair, full of justice, and free of pirates. People here can work at sunrise and return at sunset, without closing the door at night or picking up lost items on the road. I hope Dr. Vegapunk can help me realize it." Carl's eyes were full of determination, and his words were full of longing, hope and determination for the future. And the addition of characters like Vegapunk can speed up the time for him to realize this wish. Vegapunk looked at Carl, who looked sincere, and he was a little moved. "I remember that at the beginning, he kindly built floor heating for his hometown and even invented various technologies, but he was met with confusion and complaints. Then due to lack of funds, he never paid attention to the people in his hometown after leaving his hometown." Hearing Carl's words today, he was immediately touched. He actually wanted to create such a world, but he had no chance. "If that's the case, I'd like to help you." Vegapunk stood up, walked to a device on the center console, and called up a screen. "This is a technology I'm working on." Vegapunk's eyes were full of excitement. "It's called the blood factor, bloodline factor?" Carl couldn't sit still anymore and hurriedly stepped forward and looked at the DNA linked list flashing on the screen in front of him. He knew that Vegapunk was forcibly arrested by the world government because he developed the blood factor. The purpose was to make him work for the world government. Carl couldn't help but sympathize with the original Vegapunk. He naturally knew the greatness of the blood factor technology. With ancestry factors, different genes can be added to a person. You can even extract the blood of demon fruit power and clone a corresponding devil fruit. The devil fruit eaten by Momonosuke in the original work was created by extracting Kaido's genes after eating the blue dragon fruit. Although Vegapunk said that fruit was a failure, looking at Momonosuke's performance, it was obvious that the technology was successful. "Has this study been completed?" Hearing Carl's urgent question, Vegapunk smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Not yet, it will take about 10 years. The main reasons are the shortage of raw materials and the capital chain." When Carl heard that it turned out to be a problem with raw materials and funds, he immediately reached out to interrupt. "Dr. Vegapunk, don't worry, I already know all your troubles. Problems with raw materials and lack of funds are not problems. I will help you solve them." Vegapunk was a little surprised. "Oh, what can you do?" Carl patted his chest and smiled confidently. "For the problem of raw materials, you contact Clay and he will help you raise it as soon as possible. As for the shortage of capital chain, you don't have to worry. I will invest 10 billion Bailey first. It is not enough. Use me to continue adding. Vegapunk didn't expect that Carl would take this issue so seriously. You must know that he is in MADS and is always in short supply of raw materials and funds. That would be great. In this case, I will try to get the results within 5 years. Seeing that Carl actually frowned, Vegapunk quickly explained. Don't think that this experiment is simple. Even if the raw materials and funds are sufficient, it will take at least 5 years. Carl stretched his brows and shook his head slightly. He knew he was a little too anxious. We also understand that Vegapunk has its own clear plans and goals for science. Although the research and development of bloodline factors is very important, Carl also knows that Dr. Vegapunk needs enough time and space to conduct research and experiments. I also believe that Dr. Vegapunk will do his best to complete this research, because he also completed this research in the original work. All he needs to do now is give Dr. Vegapunk enough trust and support. So he smiled and said to Vegapunk, "Don't worry, Dr. Vegapunk, time is not a problem, it's all up to you to decide." Okay, then it's settled. When things were settled, Vegapunk started to chase people away. He is a mad scientist. As expected, Punk looked down at his watch and said apologetically, "Captain Carl, thank you very much for your support and understanding, but I still have a lot of research work to do, so I can't continue chatting with you." Chatting with Carl for so long has already wasted a lot of his research time. Carl nodded in understanding. Okay, Quinn and Geisa will be your assistants, and they will also assist you in completing the research and development of the bloodline factor. Dr. Vegapunk, I'll take my leave now. You go about your business first. No problem. Carl slowly stood up from his seat, his eyes revealed an aura of intelligence, strode towards the door, and glanced at Quinn and Geisa outside. While Carl was unleashing his oppressive momentum, he looked at them and said in a serious tone, "Quinn, Geisa, you must fully assist Vegapunk's research next. As for your own research, I will give you enough funds and materials after the research carried out by Vegapunk produces results." Young Quinn and Geisa are still a little afraid of Carl. After all, Carl has a vicious reputation. It was said that Carl was so cruel that he even tore Admiral to pieces with his own hands. They didn't want to get on his bad side and get killed. Feeling Carl's fierce aura, they had no choice but to reply respectfully. "Okay, Lord Carl." "Go in." Carl nodded, indicating that they could go in. Watching the two of them run in at a trot, they turned around and walked directly outside, with Clay following behind. "The safety of Vegapunk is the top priority, I stress it again." Clay immediately replied. "Understood, Lord Carl." Next it was time to meet Rox. Chapter 111. Deciding to publicly execute celestial dragons. After Carl left the research room, he returned to the nursery to visit his 3 daughters. After Clay left the research room, he first found the fishman Harold. "Khalil, your next task is to take good care of Dr. Vegapunk. This is also what Master Carl requires. At the same time, there will be a group of fishmen to assist you." Khalil scratched his head. He actually didn't want to, but there was nothing he could do. "Alright. The next step is the banquet prepared for you. Thanks for your hard work." Hearing Clay talk about the banquet, Harry suddenly burst into laughter. Clay then left for the kitchen, where he found baguettes and prepared food for the evening feast. "Come to Daddy." In a sunny room, Carl smiled and called his eldest daughter. Bang! The eldest daughter crawled towards her father happily. "Hey, you're so good." Carl picked up his eldest daughter and praised her with a gentle expression. Watching his daughter crawl towards her, Carl had an anti-smile on his face. "Have you chosen the child's name?" Carl replied with a wry smile. "Not yet, just wait." Carl then sighed. "Things are still very busy now. We haven't really rested yet. That celestial dragons, I decided to send them to Beehive Island tomorrow to check the situation." "Okay, I get it." But Linlin wanted to persist a little longer. "I have a few names here, see if you want them." "What's the name?" Carl asked curiously. "Matthew, Kongstiki, and Motzelt. How do you feel about these 3? Carl thought for a moment, isn't this the name of the 10th to 12th woman Charlotte Linlin in the original book? He felt that it would be better for his daughter to have a more neutral name. This can also express his homesickness. "I'll think about the name again. Don't worry, it will be done soon." "That's okay." The attendant's voice suddenly came from the door. Lord Carl, the banquet is about to begin. Let's go, Linlin. Carl stood up, smiled and extended his hand to Linlin. The two of them walked to the lobby of the Cake Island together. In the Cake Island hall, Davis and others sat neatly on the round table. Vegapunk, Clay, Long Yi, Long and even the White Tiger, all his core members gathered together, and it was so lively. Carl and Linlin sat at the head, and Redfield sat on Carl's left. Davis and others all know that this Redfield is the new member who recently joined their pirate group. After Carl sat down, he first introduced Redfield. "This is Redfield, a new member of our pirate group." Redfield stood up. He used his mind-reading skills to scan the hearts of most people present and found that except for a few people, most people were very open-minded and kind-hearted. "Hello everyone, my name is Redfield, I'm glad to join you. I hope I can become good friends with you all. Dry. Cheers." Carl stood up with a smile on his face, and then Clay and others also stood up one after another and raised their glasses to drink together. At the banquet, Vegapunk and Quinn et al. "This is also the first time I feel that there is such a friendly team among the pirates. After all, in their view, aren't pirates all vicious and selfish people? How can there be such a united team?" The meeting came to an end amidst the bustle of everyone. The attendants who were prepared carried the drunken people back to the room. Carl naturally lives with Linlin. A few words are omitted here. Early the next morning, Carl and Linlin, accompanied by Redfield, flew towards Beehive Island with the Celestial Dragons. Admiral, an isolated island tiger next to Beehive Island, has been waiting here for more than 10 days, but he does not appear impatient. Because he ate the zone cat fruit, an ancient species, in the form of a saber-toothed tiger, he had a lot of patience. But the change came on this day. These Wenhu Admiral are observing the anomalies on Beehive Island on the small island. Then I turned around and saw 3 people flying in the sky. I took out my binoculars and took a closer look. It turned out to be Carl, Linlin and a stranger, who were about to breathe a sigh of relief. The next second, I saw a trace of clothes at their feet. Well, that is Celestial Dragons. Wenhu Admiral felt a little regretful. He didn't expect that Celestial Dragons would be in Carl's hands. In this short period of time, Carl has landed on Beehive Island, and he has no chance now. He quickly took out the phone bug. "Bola, Bola. Marshall Hill? Marshall Hill, I have been wanting to hear the good news from Wenhu Admiral these days, but unfortunately I haven't been able to wait." When the phone rang, I immediately picked it up. "I am Wenhu Admiral. What's wrong?" Wenhu Admiral said straight to the point. Report. Marshall Hill has just discovered that Carl and Charlotte Linlin have brought the Celestial Dragons into the Hive Island. Marshall Hill chewed these words in his mind for a moment. It turned out that they did not take the Celestial Dragons to Beehive Island immediately, but might have hidden them in the desert sea area they secretly developed. So the next moment, he informed Wenhu Admiral of his guess. What? It turns out that they did not return directly to Beehive Island, but went to Carl's mysterious desert sea area. It looks like this. Marshall Hill rubbed his frown and felt a little headache. Now that the Celestial Dragons have arrived at the Beehive Island, many of their plans are no longer needed. Now we can only wait and see what Rox will do. Okay, please wait a moment while I contact the insider on Fengchao Island to check the situation. After Marshall Hill hung up the phone, he quickly called Beehive Island's internal line to inquire about the situation. At this time, inside Beehive Island, Carl and Linlin had arrived outside Rox's room with the Celestial Dragons. Rox felt Carl's arrival in the room, so he walked out of the room, but his eyes widened the next moment. "This is Celestial Dragons. Ha ha ha, Carl, you gave me a big surprise." Rox was confused at first, then laughed in shock. He didn't expect that Carl would give him such a gift. Celestial Dragons is no different. Rox stepped forward to take a closer look at the Celestial Dragons in Carl's hand. "Captain Rox, this is my gift to you. What do you think?" "Of course you can't ask for it." The two looked at each other and smiled. In response to this matter that night, Rox summoned the squad leader, Golden Lion and others, and issued a declaration on the island that Celestial Dragons would be deployed on Haas Island. What? Okay, I get it. After Marshall Hill learned the inside information, he quickly called the world government. This matter absolutely cannot be tolerated. Send CP0. Can. After a brief discussion, the 5 elders sent 5 CP0s to Haas Island. Their mission is simple. If possible, rescue them. If they can't rescue them, they can't let the video phone bug transmit the footage of Rox and others executing the celestial dragons. Roger that, Marshall Hill. After Wen-Hu received the news from Marshall Hill on the desert island, he immediately set off for Haas Island. He wanted to relocate the residents of Haas Island as much as possible. Haas Island is located in the second half of New World, between the Fishmen Island and Beehive Island. Haas Island is a small island with a permanent population of only more than 10,000. They are still living and working normally on the island, but they did not expect that a big world war is about to set off on their island, and the land they depend on for survival will disappear from the world. The next day Rox and the others sailed to Haas Island with the celestial dragons, followed by Mormoris and Morgos, as well as a large number of video phone bugs. Finally reached. Wen-Hu Admiral looked at Haas Island in front of him. After traveling all night, he arrived at Haas Island ahead of schedule. He quickly revealed his identity as Marine Admiral and transferred the residents of the island one by one. Due to time constraints, they only moved to nearby islands. As soon as he finished his work, Wen-Hu Admiral saw a fleet of ships coming from the horizon. It's Rox Pirate. Chapter 112, Marine Attacks. In the waters far away from Haas Island, Wen-Hu Admiral was hiding in a small boat. His mood was complicated, with a hint of confusion and struggle, but also full of expectations. Wen-Hu Admiral knew that the Rox Pirate was coming, and as a member of the Justice Marine, he had to rescue the evil celestial dragons, which made his heart briefly anxious. But he knew he was a Marine Admiral and this wouldn't be the first time this happened. As he battled with himself in his mind, a fleet of ships came from a distance. It was Rox's fleet that finally arrived at their destination, Haas Island. Golden Lion placed the fleet at the port, and then a large number of pirates began to come ashore. They howled wildly to welcome this moment. Because there is no airtight wall, some people already know the purpose of coming here. Rox stood on the shore, facing a crowd of fanatical pirates. He opened his hands and shouted loudly. Ha ha ha, we have to accomplish something big today. His voice resounded like thunder across the sea and sky. Execution of the celestial dragons, cheers, little ones. Rox's declaration shocked most of the pirates present. Their pupils shrank, and they felt extremely shocked. Ouch! Long live Rox! Lord Rox is the strongest. If you behead someone, world government and marine will not ignore it. HMPH, we are the strongest. The pirates all let out deafening cheers, and there was no one who didn't shout loudly. Many of these pirates had their homes captured by the celestial dragons, became slaves, and were forced to become pirates, filled with endless hatred for celestial dragons. Kids, set the stage, we're going to sing. Ouch! Don't worry, Lord Rox. The discussions below continued to be lively. Every pirate worked very hard. This was the execution of celestial dragons, something they had never seen before. A confident smile gradually appeared on Rox's face. He felt that after he said these words, the pirates below became excited, and no one felt afraid or regressed. Rox was actually afraid of something unexpected happening, because Carl told him the specific time to capture the celestial dragons. He doesn't believe in marine and world government, so he won't do anything. At the same time, his eyes glanced at the sea area in front of him on the left. I'm hiding far away. I won't be discovered, right? In the distance, Wen-Hu Admiral was holding a telescope. He spotted Rox glancing here and immediately got down. His heart was racing, and he knew that if he was discovered, he would be attacked by the Rox pirates. Wen-Hu Admiral took a deep breath, and then quietly ran further away. Seeing the pirates in front of him busy building the execution platform, Wen-Hu Admiral felt a strong uneasiness in his heart. He knew that once the execution platform was completed, it meant that a fierce battle was about to begin. So he quickly dialed the phone and contacted Marshall Hill, who was far away at the headquarters. Marshall Hill, I have arrived at Haas Island and relocated the civilians. Wen-Hu Admiral's tone was firm and urgent. Marshall Hill immediately answered the phone. He knew very well how dangerous Wen-Hu Admiral's situation was at this moment. Well done, Wen-Hu Admiral. Marshall Hill affirmed his action. Kong is heading towards Haas Island at full speed. I have also sent Sengoku and others, and the world government has also sent CP0 to wait for the opportunity. Hearing this news, Wen-Hu Admiral breathed a sigh of relief. He knew that he was not alone and had a strong backing behind him. Okay, I see. Wen-Hu Admiral hung up the phone and returned his attention to the situation at hand. He observed every move on the island attentively, always alert to any danger that might arise. If he discovers that the pirates are trying to harm the celestial dragons, he will step forward to stop them without hesitation and try his best to delay the arrival of reinforcements. At the same time, Kongzong led more than 30,000 Marines towards Haas Island at full speed. Their only goal is to stop Rox and his pirate gang from executing the celestial dragons. Young ladies, this is our biggest task at the moment. I hope you can prepare well and make sure nothing goes wrong. Hearing Rox's shouting, the pirates became even more excited. They were preparing crazily and looking forward to the upcoming battle. Because they know very well that the world government and marine will not fail to take action like executing celestial dragons. In the power center of world government, Marijoy. A gorgeous palace suddenly collapsed, causing a huge shock. How dare he? It really pisses me off. As a roar came, a big hole was opened in the clouds in the sky. An old man, Whitebeard, was furious. He had nowhere to vent when he saw the news delivered to him by Marshal Hill. Okay, calm down. Besides, haven't we already sent people there? Another 5 elders flashed in front of him and held down his right hand that was about to wave. Snort. The old man Whitebeard snorted angrily, and then walked away directly. In another conference room, the 5 elders sit in a circle. This matter must be handled properly. Otherwise the Lord will not be able to explain it, and the celestial dragon's family will not be able to explain it here. A glint flashed in the eyes of the bald 5 elders sitting nearby. That's true. Although the news has not spread yet, I think that since Rox has decided to publicly execute him, he will definitely publicize the result of the execution. This will be about the prestige of our world government and the status of the celestial dragons. The 5 elders looked solemn. They knew that if they could not handle this matter properly, it would have a serious impact on the prestige and status of the world government. They quickly started a discussion and discussed the response strategy. They must take action as soon as possible to stop Rox and his pirate group, protect the safety of the celestial dragons, and maintain the prestige of the world government. The 5 elders thought very simply, using newspapers to block the news, and then looking for opportunities to deal with the Rox pirate. However, what they don't know is that now that the video phone bug has been developed, their plan is likely to fail. It looks like our old friend is here. The pirates set up the execution platform, and a huge marine fleet greeted them in the distance. The leader was Kong, and next to him was Wen-Hu Admiral. Apparently they had merged. Next to them stood Sengoku, Garp, Zephyr, Crane and others. It turned out that Marshal Hill felt that Kong and Wen-Hu Admiral alone might not be able to deal with the Rox pirate, so he secretly sent Sengoku and others to the Sabaody archipelago in the first half of the New World to follow Kong to Har's Island. It's Marine. Boom boom boom. Marine took the lead in attacking the pirates on the sea, and for a moment the cannonballs flew like rain. Empty shock. Newgate roared angrily and suddenly swung his right fist. The space in front of him shattered, and cannonballs were exploded in the air. All this shocked the entire battlefield and made the Marines realize that they were about to face a fierce battle and must go all out to stop the Rox pirate and protect the safety of the celestial dragons. Chapter 113. Image phone bug. Boys, let's start the war. This was the one Rox was waiting for. His eyes instantly became sharp, like a cheetah locking its prey, and the black dragon in his hand pointed at Marine. The corners of his mouth were slightly raised, revealing a provocative and confident smile, as if he had foreseen the coming of victory. The celestial dragons had just been placed on the execution platform. The pirates stared at the marine fleet in the distance and couldn't help but go crazy. Their eyes were full of excitement and desire, as if a group of hungry wolves had seen their long-lost prey. Following Rox's order, the pirates began to face the Marines who were landing on the beach. They showed bloodthirsty eyes, like a pack of wolves, and charged towards the Marine who was ashore ferociously. Rox released celestial dragons. Looking at the celestial dragons of bloodline Madara on the execution platform, Kong looked a little ugly. His brows were furrowed, and his eyes were full of worry and anger. He knew that if the celestial dragons could not be saved in time, the consequences would be disastrous. Ha ha ha, come and grab it if you can. Rox smiled darkly and looked at Kong. His eyes were full of provocation and contempt, as if he had already won. Gia ha ha ha. What else is there to say? Marine is here. Golden Lion led the charge, with a look of arrogance on his face, heading straight towards Marine Vice Admiral Zephyr. His eyes were filled with the desire for battle, like a tiger pouncing on its prey, with the corners of his mouth raised in a provocative smile. Immediately afterwards, Newgate, Linlin, Carl, Ochaku, John Silver Axe and others also ran towards the shore one after another. A large number of pirates rushed over and fought with Marine on the shore. The sound of clashing iron tools, gunshots, and roars intertwined, and the scene suddenly became chaotic. Blood splatters, gunpowder fills the air, life and death are just a matter of thoughts. When Zephyr raised his fist, and the dark armament hockey blocked the Golden Lion slash. His eyes were firm and full of fighting spirit. Gia ha ha ha. Zephyr, we meet again. Shaki laughed, his eyes full of provocation, and at the same time stretched out his right foot covering armament hockey and kicked Zephyr hard on the waist. HMPH, pirate, don't be too arrogant. Zephyr took a step back and dodged the attack. His eyes were full of concern, and the corners of his mouth were slightly raised. Then, Zephyr launched a sudden attack. Gia ha ha ha. Zephyr, it's not bad. The two of them were very quick, and they were fighting inextricably, with no distinction between superior and inferior. Their speed was extremely fast, their figures shuttled like lightning, dazzling people, and the air exploded wherever they passed. Every fight was accompanied by a powerful shockwave, and the people around them left a large open space for them. Clang! At this time, a deafening sound came from the center of the battlefield, and the eardrums of those with low strength began to bleed. This is a fierce battle between Kong and Rox. Ha ha ha, Kong, I think your strength has dropped a lot. It turned out to be a battle between Rox and Kong. Every strike between the two made the entire island tremble. Rox, if you really dare to execute the celestial dragons, aren't you afraid of the five elders? Kong gritted his teeth and asked Rox. Ha ha ha, am I afraid of him? Stop being ridiculous, Kong. If you have the ability, just do it. On the black dragon's blade, armament hockey began to flow. Kamui! As Rox roared, a slash from hockey knocked Kong directly to the ground. Rox did not hesitate, but quickly fell to the ground and slashed at Kong. When Hu Admiral knew that Kong could not resist Rox alone, so he quickly went to help. When he directly transformed into a half-man, half-tiger animal form, and like a cannonball, he rushed towards Rox, who was coming at a very fast speed. Kong also quickly got up from the ground and directly joined the battle group, and the three of them fought in an instant. Bursts of roaring sounds could be heard continuously, and terrifying power erupted from every move. Others were not idle either. Jiu la la la. Newgate holds the kumokuri in both hands. The blade is covered with white air mass, and activates the shock fruit ability. Garp, let me see if your strength has improved? Newgate bent one knee, raised the cloud cutter, and swung it towards the Garp in front of him. Ha ha ha, come on Newgate then. Looking at the smile on Newgate's face, he also felt threatened and took action without hesitation. Armament hockey covered his fists and turned black. Crack, click, click, boom. As the two of them fought, white cracks appeared in the air, and then they lost control, raging everywhere like a strong wind. Just as several people were finding their opponents one after another, John, Linlin and others were still wreaking havoc in the marine. How long do you want to watch the show? Seeing Marine's casualties gradually increasing, Kong roared towards the coast. Sorry, sorry. The sudden sound attracted the attention of everyone present, and 5 CP0s wearing white robes came towards the shore. John, Silver Axe, Ochaku, Linlin, and Kaido found their opponents in an instant. Linlin, ladies first. Ochaku crossed his arms. Well, then I'll go first. Linlin glanced at Ochaku, then raised the Emperor's sword. Wangdi sword broken blade. As Charlotte Linlin faced a CP0 first, John and others also found their opponents one after another. It turned into streams of light and rushed towards CPO. As several people joined the battle group, a huge open space was instantly drawn on the shore for several people to fight. Bang! Sengoku, the debt between the two of us is not over yet. Carl's fists were covered with armament haki, and the black-gold fist shone coldly. Carl, pirates and marines have always been antagonistic. Ever since the day you joined the pirates, there have been endless scores between us. Sengoku also fought back unfailingly. Big Buddha shockwave. Sengoku immediately transformed into the form of a giant Buddha, let out a roar, and suddenly swung his right palm out, sending a strong shockwave towards Carl. Thunder. Carl raised his hand to attract thunder and lightning from the sky, turning it into a thunder waterfall, and easily broke away from Sengoku's shockwave. Then violent thunder erupted from Carl's body. The thunder began to spread around, and everyone around felt a numbness in their bodies, and quickly moved away from everyone. Carl's strength has become stronger again. How is that possible? Sengoku blocked this attack, but his expression suddenly changed, and his face was full of disbelief. Looking at the flashing thunder flower on the palm of his hand, his right hand was covered with armaments, and haki suddenly tightened his grip. This child must not be kept. Kong in the middle of the battlefield caught a glimpse of Carl's thunder power, and his expression kept changing, apparently feeling the violent power of thunder and lightning. Kong and I are fighting, and you dare to be distracted. You are really looking for death. Rox seemed to be able to face the two admirals with ease. Seeing Kong lose his mind, Rox suddenly swung the black dragon. While Kong was distracted, a long slash was left on his chest. Damn it! Kong, unexpectedly, the moment he lost his mind, Rox found the opportunity. Ha ha ha, Garp, you are distracted. Newgate was surprised and at the same time grabbed Garp's opening and swung the Kong Yunchi suddenly, trying to seriously injure Garp. Newgate, you're still far behind. But Garp's combat intuition was not impotent, and he was able to resist it instantly. Chapter 114. A battle that ends with an anticlimax. Rakery. Carl did not just stay at home during this period, but created many lightning skills by referring to various animation or film and television skills. Sengoku kept waving the shockwaves on his hands, colliding with Rakery. Zizizi. Boom. The two energies collided with each other. The sound of explosion seemed to resound through the sky, and the surrounding area was filled with lightning as if the god of thunder was coming. At the same time as the energy wave touched, Carl stepped on Marine 6 styles, shave, constantly approaching Sengoku. Thunder Fist. In an instant, there was a flash of lightning, and a fist shining with purple thunder appeared in front of Sengoku's chest. Sengoku squatted slightly with his right foot and suddenly jumped to the right. Clang. At the same time, he waved his left fist to resist, and there was a sharp metal collision sound the moment the two fists collided. Sengoku regained his Buddha form, and the two of them started to fight hand to hand. Clang clang clang. The two of them ran quickly on the ground, leaving behind shadows wherever they passed, and the ground began to crack. Lies. A large amount of thunder and lightning was instantly released under Carl's feet, turning the ground under his feet into a thunder and lightning swamp. Armament haki full coverage. In order not to be affected, Sengoku immediately covered his whole body with armament haki while concentrating his eyes. Senju Buddha. Sengoku unfolded his giant Buddha form on the spot, and countless Buddha hands appeared behind him, suddenly slapping towards Carl. Plop and punch. Carl didn't dodge at all and threw a very ordinary straight punch. However, the face of Sengoku on the opposite side changed drastically. He felt a fatal threat from this punch. Domineering. Sengoku yelled in surprise. He had learned how to dominate in a short time even though he couldn't do it last time. In an instant, endless power burst out from Carl's body. Bang. Sengoku resisted hastily. The next moment, a domineering momentum swept the entire audience. Carl stood in midair with red ripples of Conqueror's haki emanating from his body. Red ripples were overwhelming, surrounding Sengoku. Buzz. Sengoku was not to be outdone, and the intimidating Conqueror's haki collided with Carl. Quickly retreat. This is Lord Carl's Conqueror's haki. It's such a strong sense of oppression that we can hardly breathe. The pirates and marines who were close to the two felt a strong sense of oppression coming from their bodies. Come on, you can't bear this. Each other's squad leaders quickly directed everyone to move aside. Zizizi. The two Conquerors' haki collided in the air. A bottomless ravine formed in the middle of Conqueror's Haki's collision. The clouds in the sky also began to roll back toward the center at this moment. 5 thunders rectify the law. Big Buddha shockwave. The two of them collided quickly with a low roar. Sengoku kept waving his palms, and strong shockwaves flew towards Carl. And Carl was not to be outdone, triggering thunder from the sky. Crackling. The two energies collided alternately in the air. With the continuous collisions, various terrifying currents were spread in the air and on the ground. The pirates and marines who had no time to dodge were turned into charcoal. Try this, Thunderbomb. Carl formed a ball of liquid from the thunder in his hand and started throwing it at Sengoku from a distance. Sengoku looked at the small thunderball in front of him and felt fear for the first time in his heart. He quickly gathered Conqueror's Haki in his hand and suddenly threw it at the thunder plasma bomb in front of him. Clang! It was obviously a thunder plasma bomb, but it produced a metallic clashing sound at the same time as the collision. Haha, Sengoku is making progress. Carl crossed his arms and looked at Sengoku in front of him and couldn't help but said provocatively. Carl, don't be too pretentious. With a low growl, Sengoku launched his attack. He knew that long-distance attacks had no advantage, and the only way to fight Carl was hand-to-hand combat. The next second, the two attacks collided, and the power generated directly formed a huge airwave, which even affected the people fighting further away. But even so, Carl still couldn't get results in a short period of time. Thunder 8 trigrams. At this moment, the other side of the battlefield ushered in a change. With a roar, Kaido was at a disadvantage against the CP0 in front of him. It is obvious that Kaido is at a disadvantage. Powerful country. The CP against Linlin was 0. Unexpectedly, Linlin also mastered Conqueror's entanglement. And although Linlin's swordsmanship is not a great swordsman, it is much stronger than the average swordsman. Damn, what a miscalculation. CP0 while thinking, he looked at the surrounding battlefield. He originally wanted to deal with Kaido, Linlin and others as soon as possible in order to rescue the celestial dragons. But now it is a question whether they can escape alive. John and Silver Axiep Zero were playing neck and neck. Obviously it doesn't look like he can come and help. Although Ochaku's right arm is broken, it is not something that CP0 can take down in a short time. The entire Haas Island has been almost completely destroyed. Kaido is like a weakling from immune to death. He gets back up every time he is knocked down, leaving CP0 with no chance to rescue the celestial dragons. Not to mention Kong, Garp, Zephyr and other marines, they were restrained by the Rock's pirate captain. Hello everyone, my name is Morris. Now let me introduce to you the situation at the scene. While everyone was fighting fiercely, Morris stood beside the execution platform, with 4 image phone bugs next to him facing the 4 directions of the battlefield. At the same time, the celestial dragons were taken in. Who is this person? Yes, how did this scene appear? There is a projection phone bug on Grand Line Sky Island and most islands in the New World. This is actually the result of the secret chess arranged by Carl at Sahai and Peking University. As early as when the image phone bug and projector phone bug were developed, they had already been spread to Sahai and Grand Line through secret means for today's live broadcast. That person seems to be celestial dragons. What are celestial dragons? Yes, I know this man. This is the captain of Rock's pirate. Some of the civilians scattered around knew some of the people present at the scene and exclaimed. Although Morris could not interact with everyone present, it did not prevent him from continuing to talk to the phone image bug. Yes, this is celestial dragons, the person we Rock's pirate will execute today. Discussions began to ring out from all corners of the world. It's impossible to execute celestial dragons, is it true? How is that possible? How dare Rock's pirate group act like the celestial dragons? I hope this is true. My family was destroyed because of the celestial dragons. Hey, keep your voice down. Woo woo woo. Many people knelt down and cried directly at the scene. Too many people were oppressed by the celestial dragons and had nowhere to vent. Right now, someone happened to stand up bravely and be the first person to execute celestial dragons, and they all cheered for him. Now our Captain Rox is facing off against Marine Admiral, Kong and others. Please watch the big screen. Chapter 115. Celestial Dragons dies. The screen turned and came to the battle scene between Rox, Kong, and Wenhu Admiral. Boom boom boom. Fierce battle sounds were heard one after another, deafening. The battle between Rox, Kong, and Wenhu Admiral had reached a fierce stage. Every move they made was full of power, and every collision was frightening. Marine is the lackey of the celestial dragons. It's not a good thing for Marine either. The celestial dragons are so bad, Marine still has to save him. People all over the world gnashed their teeth and hated Marine. His tone was full of anger and disappointment, and the justice he felt towards Marine was even higher. Bola, Bola. Just then, Five Elders' phone bug rang. Reporting to Lord Five Elders, there are now video phone bugs appearing in New World and all over the world, showing the scene. What? After hearing the report from his subordinates, the news of Rock's execution of Tinlin had spread throughout the sea through video phone bugs. The bearded Five Elders immediately kicked the table in front of them into pieces in anger. Okay, I get it. The long-bearded Five Elders had just hung up the phone, and the scar-faced Five Elders immediately asked him, "What's the situation?" The bearded Five Elders quickly told several people the news. Bang! If I had known earlier, we would have taken action together. The bald Five Elders are the most irrational among them, and are often filled with anger. Think about what to do now. The tall and lanky Five Elders immediately reached out to stop his anger. What else can you think about? Hurry up and contact Kong and others and ask them to cut off the video phone bug immediately. The middle-aged Five Elders thought quickly and immediately thought of a solution. There is only one way. The bearded Five Elders immediately called Kong on the phone. On the battlefield, Kong felt the phone in his arms begin to respond, winked at Wenhu, and then exited the battle circle. Hello? I am Five Elders. Now your live video has been spread all over the sea through video phone bugs. I need you to interrupt it immediately. The bearded Five Elders kept the story short and quickly informed Kong of the situation. Okay, got it, Five Elders. Just after hanging up the phone, he saw Wenhu who couldn't hold on any longer and hurriedly approached him. Bang! When Kong was fighting Rox again, he glanced around with his peripheral vision. Now there were no free hands to shut down the video phone bug. Damn, what a mistake. I didn't expect them to use this method. Kong gritted his teeth while increasing his resistance to Rox's attack. Ha ha ha, you two are not good enough. As soon as Rox finished speaking, his whole body's aura changed. The arrogant conqueror's haki was released instantly, causing all the weak people in the audience to faint. Wow, is this Rox? Lord Rox is so strong. Is this conqueror's haki? The audience who saw the live broadcast let out a cry of surprise. Rox is so strong. What should we do? Yes, pirates are so strong. How can we guarantee our lives? I don't dare touch New World's business now, but immediately someone looked worried. Now Mr. Rox is the person I admire the most. I want to go to sea, I want to be a pirate, I want to join the Rox pirate. But someone quickly refuted it, raising their right hands and cheering loudly. Even if you don't look at what Mr. Rox is doing. More people responded and were preparing to go out to sea to join the Rox pirate. The next step is the part that everyone is most concerned about. The execution of the celestial dragons begins now. Ouch! It finally begins. Yes, yes, I have been waiting for this moment for a long time. Damn celestial dragons. Some cheered, some jumped for joy, and some knelt down and cried bitterly. Kong at the scene found that on the execution platform in the distance, 2 spears had already been pointed at Malrose Street. No, let's do our best to rescue the celestial dragons. Kong's roar caught the attention of all Marines present. Some Marine attacks are deliberately slowed down, while others head straight for the celestial dragon's execution platform. People have different opinions. Some people want the celestial dragons to just die, while others want to be promoted. Ha ha ha, Kong, do you look down on me? Rox was furious when he saw that while Kong was fighting him, he still had time to distract himself and command other Marines. Kamui. Rox raised the dark black dragon and instantly drew a dark black blade in the sky. Kong sensed the thick conqueror's haki wrapped around the sword energy and quickly dodged. Ah! Kong heard Wenhu scream and immediately turned his head. The next moment, he was shocked. It turned out that the actual target of this slashing attack was Wenhu. Wenhu Admiral did not escape this slashing blow, his right hand and calf were cut off in half, and the whole person exited the beastly form of devil fruit. Clang! Just as Kong was about to catch Wen Hu, who fell from midair, he was intercepted by Rock's black knife. Plop! Kong could only watch as Wen Hu fell to the ground with a miserable look on his face. Ha ha ha, you are the only one left, let's see how you stop me. Rock stood in midair and laughed. Another Marine admiral was about to die. This was great news for him. Rocks, don't be complacent, 5 elders will definitely not let you go. Execution. The faint voice spread throughout the audience, and everyone looked towards the execution platform. The originally noisy scene immediately became silent. Puff, puff. As 2 spears were inserted into Celestial Dragon's body, Celestial Dragons was instantly awakened by pain. Ah! Why didn't Marine save me? Celestial Dragon's Malros Saint only had time to say this. The next moment, his head was drooping, and he was obviously dead. I want to go to sea, no one can stop me. I want to join Rock's pirate. From today on, Mr. Rocks is my most admired idol. The videophone bug was shut down after the Celestial Dragons were executed. But Shitai and Grand Line wanted to go to sea, and the number of people becoming pirates suddenly increased. The world of pirates ushered in the first small-scale pirate craze. Retreat. Kong gritted his teeth and issued this last resort order. Because he knew that if he didn't retreat, Marine's casualties might be even greater. Newgate, Sengoku, Garp, Carl and others stopped fighting one after another. Let them leave. Rocks looked at the 10 figures looming on the horizon in the distance and learned that his wish to keep most of the Marines behind today would not be possible. The pirates were also more obedient and did not pursue. They just watched Sengoku, Kong and others withdraw from the battle little by little. Chapter 116. Going against the will of the world government. Ha ha ha, kids, let's have a party. The battle ended anticlimactically. How's it going, Redfield? What a good show. After the battle, Carl came to Redfield's side. Redfield did not join in the battle, but just watched Marine's actions from the sidelines. Sure enough, this world is rotten. Ha ha ha, don't worry, we will straighten it out with our own hands. It can only be the... Then the 2 of them turned around and joined the banquet. As for the embarrassing scene, they were not needed. And on the sea at this time, you did a very poor job in this matter. The 5 elders will hold you accountable. Marine sailed away from Haas Island and headed towards the Sabodi archipelago. 10 figures on the sea fell in front of Kong. They were wearing golden armor and were members of the Knights of God. Why don't you come up? Kong gritted his teeth and looked at the 10 members of the Knights of God in front of him. Each of them is Admiral class. If they join the battle, Marine's casualties will not be so heavy, and Wen Hu Admiral will not be so seriously injured. Our duty is only to escort you out. This is also what 5 elders means. Also, you are only a Marine under the world government, and you are not qualified to question the instructions of your superiors. The Knights of God showed contempt, and after saying a word, the 10 people flew towards world government Marijoy. Bang! Damn it! Kong smashed the fence in front of him and looked fiercely at the Knights of God who were retreating. Set sail back to naval headquarters. Seeing the resentment emanating from Kong, Sengoku and others did not step forward to speak. Instead, they returned to their respective ships and directed the remaining crew members to head towards the naval headquarters. Is that so? I understand. Marshal Hill received Kong's report and knew that this might be the world government's attempt to weaken Marine strength. Because Marine already had 7 Admiral-level warriors before, including one himself, Kong, Wen Hu, Sengoku, Garp, and Zephyr, plus the Snow Lion Admiral who had died in the battle. The world government will not allow Marine to escape his control. There are only 4 Marine-level Admiral-level warriors, and now they are far exceeded. But to confirm the truth, he quickly called the bearded 5 elders. Hey, are you 5 elders? Hey, is this Hill? Bearded 5 elders were a little confused when they received the call from Marshal Hill. Master 5 elders, Wen Hu Admiral was seriously injured in this battle. I believe someone will inform you of more detailed information soon. Marine has lost 2 Admiral-level warriors. I request to start a large-scale recruitment in the first half of Sahai and Grand Line. 5 elders stroked his beard, with a faint smile on his face, and looked at the other 4-5 elders on the round table. After a simple glance, he spoke into the phone. This matter is not urgent yet. The most important thing now is to consolidate Sahai and Grand Line first, and we can push forward the recruitment matter. If you don't have anything else to do, you can hang up first. Bah. Marshall Hill heard the busy signal on the phone bug and knew his guess was correct. He rubbed his frown and thought about new ideas. Holy place Marijoy. After hanging up the phone with Hill, the five elders started a lively discussion. Marine's power is already very strong now, and it needs to be weakened further. Bald five elders touched his bald head and said seriously. For the next admiral, just choose one from Garp or Zephyr. Yes, Marine's power is becoming more and more powerful, which is also an unstable phenomenon for the world government. The tall and lanky five elders very much agreed with the middle-aged five elders' proposal. Marine's power has become more and more powerful in recent years, and it has gradually ignored the world government in some matters. The middle-aged five elders paused and then continued. Marine's rapid development must be curbed. Otherwise it may threaten us. In the end, it was the bearded five elders who made the final decision. Then it's decided. Watch it first, and then decide which one, Garp or Zephyr, will be promoted to admiral. I think it's okay. I agree too. Several others all agreed. The five elders made plans and dispersed. Hill, on the other hand, thought of a good idea and picked up the phone. Hey, Vice Admiral Pate, come to my office. Okay, Marshall Hill. Vice Admiral Pate is the current Chief of Staff of Naval Headquarters. After receiving the call from Marshall Hill, he immediately got up and went to the Marshal's office. Dong dong dong. Please come in. Marshall Hill heard the knock on the door, put down the documents on his hand, and looked at the door. Marshall Hill. Vice Admiral Ped came in, saluted, and sat down opposite him. Pate, you're here. I have already reported to the five elders. The five elders do not agree with our large-scale recruitment. Marshall Hill was straight to the point, telling Vice Admiral the results of five elders. After hearing what Marshall Hill said, Vice Admiral Pat knew there was a conspiracy. Why doesn't the world government allow Marines to recruit soldiers? Obviously he is afraid that Marine's family will become dominant. After all, the more powerful Marine is, the more likely he will be out of his control. Then what do we do next? When Vice Admiral Peter saw that Marshal Shear's face did not show any anxiety, he knew that he already had a solution. Just because he won't let us conduct a large-scale military conscription doesn't mean we don't have the means. You tell me to go down and have Sahai send the good talents to naval headquarters for training. At the same time, each branch began to supplement the missing personnel locally. Vice Admiral Ped thought for a moment and felt that this was a good plan at the moment. After all, the words, good seedling, are used very widely and can summon many people to naval headquarters. In this way, the Marine branch in the Four Seas and the first half of the Grand Line can recruit troops on a large scale. Understood, Marshall Hill. Vice Admiral Ped quickly stood up after understanding what Marshall Hill meant, and walked to the door to assign this task. By the way, there's one more thing. Seeing Pete about to walk out of the room, he immediately stopped her. Marshall Hill, please speak. Peter wonders what other problems Marshal Shear has. Looking at him with confusion, do you have any ideas about the candidate for admiral? The news was not hidden. Naval headquarters had already known that Wen-Hu admiral was seriously injured. After all, the video call was not covered. Wen-Hu could no longer continue as admiral, which resulted in the admiral electing a vacancy. If people cannot be selected in time, the newly stable Sahai and Grand Line will cause turmoil again. In my opinion, maybe Zephyr would be better. Because Vice Admiral Garp, you know it. Ped showed a wry smile. He didn't expect Marshall Hill to ask him such a sensitive matter, and spread his hands. Okay, let's go down. Of course, Marshall Hill knew the situation of Vice Admiral Garp, and asking Pate only gave him some peace of mind. After Pate left, Marshall Hill put his hands on the table and began to think about what Marine was going to do next. Chapter 117. The long-lost lottery draw. After receiving the order from Marshall Hill, Vice Admiral Peter had already distributed the plan. Therefore, various Marine branches in Sahai and the first half of the Grand Line sent potential newcomers to naval headquarters. A small-scale conscription began on the spot, although Marine's prestige has declined due to the Celestial Dragons incident. However, within just 2 months, a large number of Marines were recruited. By the time the world government got the news, it was already too late to stop it. World Government Power Center, Marijoy, bang. Damn Hill, you are becoming more and more disobedient. A violent sound came, and it turned out to be the bald 5 elders banging the table. He has a bad temper, and this is not the first time this has happened. And Marine did go a little too far this time. Because they had clearly stated that no conscription was allowed, but Marine still disobeyed them. No matter how many miscellaneous fish there are, it won't work without decisive combat effectiveness. The tall and lanky 5 elders don't see it that way. In his opinion, the strength is not as strong as the admiral, and no matter how many people there are, it is useless. And now Marine's overall strength has been reduced a lot. As long as no admiral-level expert joins, it's all within control. Since he wants to recruit people, he might as well muddy the water. Send some eliminated members with CP0. Doesn't he want to recruit people? Then give it to him. The middle-aged 5 elders are one of the think tanks here, and the 2 bearded 5 elders are responsible for formulating plans. Now that Marine has started recruiting troops, he might as well insert some spies into it so he can better monitor Marine's behavior. This is a good idea. Scarface 5 elders nodded in agreement. Marine has become increasingly disobedient over the years, and they must take some measures. Yes, doesn't he want people? Anyway, it would be a waste of food to keep those wastes, so send them to him. The bald 5 elders immediately laughed. He thought that it was just waste anyway, so it would be better to send more people. After several people said this, he felt that this conscription was good news. After all, there are not many admiral-level experts on the sea. As long as Marine doesn't recruit admiral-level experts, it doesn't matter. Okay, then it's decided. I'll notify CP0 immediately. Bearded 5 elders saw the end of the matter, picked up the phone bug, and dialed the number of Chief CP0. Marshal Hill, your idea is really good. Now the number of Marines in our various places has doubled. Sahai and the first half of the Grand Line are firmly under Marine's control. Marshal Hill looked at Vice Admiral Ped, who looked excited in front of him, and he nodded proudly. But this is not enough. The recruit's strength is too poor. He paused, then continued. In the Grand Line's Sabaody archipelago, there are still a large number of pirates heading to the New World every day. It seems that the impact of Rock's execution of Tianlong is still fermenting. Marshal Hill couldn't help but frown when he mentioned this topic. Please rest assured, Marshal, the recruitment training only takes about half a year. By then, the Sahai and Beta shipping routes will gradually calm down, and they will have enough strength to safeguard justice. Vice Admiral Pade had another idea. In her opinion, the recruitment plan was going smoothly. As for the turmoil in the Sahai and Peking University shipping routes, they will be resolved in another half a year. Things can only be arranged like this first. Next is Zephyr's Admiral promotion ceremony, so we still need to be well prepared. Hill's style changed and led to Zephyr. Understood, Marshal Hill. Vice Admiral Ped immediately saluted Marshal Hill. Marine is making a new round of plans, and the pirates are not idle either. New World, Desert Sea, Cake Island. That's it. You can't be a queen like this. Carl stretched and sat up, looked at Charlotte Linlin sleeping on the bed, and shook his head. He took a cloak and put it on his body, exposing his 8-pack abs, and came to the living room and sat on the sofa. There are still important things today, Carl said and looked at the calendar aside, February 2, 1481. My lucky number is 2. I've accumulated all the draws until today. Let's see if I can withdraw money today. He was about to shout the word lottery at the system, when a flash of lightning flashed in his mind the next second. Tap tap tap. That's right. It turned out that he had washed his hands and face during this time, and at the same time placed a portrait of Sanching and an incense burner on the table. Open the system panel. Host. Lux D. Carl Fusion Template. Under one person Old Heavenly Master. Unfused Template. Qin Shi Mingyue, Sword Master Gai Ni, Demon Fox Little Matchmaker, Royal Power and Wealth. Skills. Armament Hockey, Internal Destruction, Observation Hockey, Listen to All Things, Conqueror's Hockey, Domination, 5 Thunder Rectification, Golden Light Spell. Talent. Titan Strength Money, 191.5 billion belly. Items. 4 bottles of Shaolin Great Return Pill, 7 Bloodline Pills, 6 Weiyuan Pills, Fang Tian Hua Ji, and the Supreme Sharp Sword, Long Chen Sword. Devil Fruit. 11 PCs points, 110,000 number of draws, 3 regular draws, 1 unspecified draw. Evaluation. The top powerhouse on the sea, the peak of admiral level overall strength. Looking at the gorgeous template in front of him, Carl nodded with satisfaction. Master Sanqing, the Jade Emperor, and the Queen Mother wish me good luck. Start 3 ordinary draws. Carl put the incense in his hand on the incense burner, widened his eyes, and immediately ordered the system to start the lottery. A golden disc appeared on the familiar page again, slowly rotating. The 3 pointers on the page were his 3 lottery chances. But this time the system did not give him a chance to see clearly. The speed of the disc was getting faster and faster, turning into afterimages, and he could not see the words on it clearly. Stop. Since he couldn't read the words clearly, he had no choice but to stop and let God decide what he would draw. Congratulations to the host for drawing the ownerless rainbow stone from Star Travels, the 12 zodiac rat talisman, and the wooden spirit that Luo Feng used but still has some energy left. Looking at the reward above, Carl's mood instantly improved a lot. Rainbow stone. From Star Travels, it can evolve various abilities according to the user. The rainbow stone is pretty good, but I don't think I can use it, so I can leave it to the children. Carl read the introduction of Rainbow Stone and found that his power system was not that complicated, so it was better to keep this thing. Rat Talisman. Turns stillness into motion, giving inanimate objects the ability to activate and inherit the meaning of the object. The strongest one can last for 3 minutes at the Overlord level. This actually reminds me of a good place to go. He looked at the rat talisman and smiled mysteriously. Incomplete wood crystal. Although it is incomplete, it comes from the devouring universe. The residual energy within it can directly enhance a person's strength to the Admiral Peak. No, you actually let me take the rest. Come out of the system and see if I beat you or not. Just when Carl was having a serious battle with the system, Luo Feng, who swallowed the universe, looked at the wooden tooth crystal disappearing in his hand and scratched his head. I probably didn't absorb it all. Why did it disappear? Forget it, I don't know you anymore. Master Sanqing, Jade Emperor, Queen Mother, please let me draw something good. The unspecified lottery begins. At Carl's command, the familiar golden disc began to rotate rapidly again. Okay, stop. The disc cannot be seen clearly at all, and there is nothing interesting to see. Congratulations to host, you drew the unspecified template, the enhanced version of Thunder Tiger. Thunderbolt Tiger. For a while, Carl couldn't remember which anime Thunderbolt Tiger came from. Chapter 118 Thunder Tiger. The system opens the introduction template of Thunder Tiger. Carl quickly asked the system to open the Thunder Tiger template. Thunderbolt Tiger. From the domestic animation Zodiac Legend series. It is one of the 12 ancient zodiac animals. The owner of Plum Blossom Manor has the skill Diamond Subduing Demon Fist, after magic modification. Thunderbolt Tiger just doesn't know how strong it is. It seems that in the legend of the Chinese zodiac, the Thunder Tiger is not that powerful. How powerful can it be after the magic transformation? Vajra Demon Subduing Fist. A bodybuilding exercise that can reach the Admiral level when practiced to perfection. That's right. He read the introduction and nodded with satisfaction. This template appears at the right time, just right for Bai Hu. Dad, come out and play. He turned to look at the door, and it turned out to be Katakuri running in. After Carl became the father of Katakuri and others, Katakuri gradually returned to his childlike nature. Before it was because they didn't have a father. B*HG+2. So after their mother goes out, the older ones have to be tougher and more mature. Only in this way can we help our younger brothers and sisters, because it was not so safe on Beehive Island before, but now they no longer need to be like this. Dad. What is this? After Katakuri ran in, he saw 3 items on the table in front of the sofa and became curious. The red gem, a stone, and a crystal are exactly the rainbow stone, the rat charm, and the wood crystal. Do you want it? The expression on Carl's face was like an evil uncle coaxing a child. He knew that Katakuri had eaten the nuo fruit and wanted to see what kind of abilities he could develop. Think. Katakuri nodded hard. After all, children are curious about everything, and Carl has never been very strict with them. So they are not afraid of Carl. Here you go, play with it. Carl directly placed the red gem on Katakori's hand. Okay, thank you Dad. What's this? The moment Katakori touched the rainbow stone changed. Under the gaze of the two, the rainbow stone exuded a gentle light. Then starting from Katakori foot, the whole house starts to rise and fall. Well, that's it. Carl didn't expect that the rainbow stone could actually awaken the fruit, but he just didn't know if it could go outside. But he knew that he couldn't let such changes continue, otherwise he would have to redecorate the house. He stretched out his right hand covering armament Haki and grabbed Katakori directly. After Katakori left the ground, the room and ground returned to their original appearance. The two flew out through the window. Lord Carl. Master Carl, good morning. When Carl came out, he saw the guards patrolling. He smiled and nodded. Then he quickly carried Katakori to the chocolate forest on the shore. You stupid tiger, you are here. When he was in the sky, he saw the white tiger lying lazily near the drinking river. Looking at the room next to him, it was obvious that someone had repaired it for him. This person didn't need to think about it. He knew that it was Clay who arranged it. He shook his head with a wry smile. Eat enough to sleep, sleep enough to eat, and you have reached the peak of tiger life. Father, where are we going? Katakori had some questions. He didn't know what was happening to his body or where his father wanted to take him. That red stone is called the rainbow stone, and it can display different abilities according to one's will. But I didn't expect that it can actually promote fruit awakening. Father, do you think my fruit has awakened? Before Carl could finish his words, he was interrupted by Katakori. Although Katakori is very young, he is not a bad student who is ignorant and incompetent. Fruit awakening is the final state of a devil fruit. It can be said that no matter how bad the devil fruit is, if it reaches awakening, its power will not be much worse. Is this the rainbow stone? He tightly grasped the rainbow stone on his right hand, excitement radiating from his eyes. Originally I just wanted to play with my father, but I didn't expect that because of this stone, I would realize the ability of devil fruit to awaken. I didn't expect this. Carl didn't expect the rainbow stone to be so powerful. It must have had some kind of chemical reaction with the devil fruit. Reached. Here, let's get familiar with devil fruit's awakening abilities. The two of Carl landed on the ground, and sure enough, the next moment the snow-white ground began to become soft. You need to master this ability as soon as possible, and don't be in a triggered state all the time. He frowned. He was in a state of awakening all the time and it was difficult to control. Otherwise, you can only put that rainbow stone aside for the time being. No, father, I will master him soon, believe me. When he heard that Carl was going to take back the rainbow stone, he immediately raised his resolute face. Fruit awakening, he must cherish this opportunity. He also wants to become stronger as soon as possible so that he can do more things for his parents and better protect his younger siblings. It depends on how quickly you master it. Carl said a little mischievously. Of course he knew what Katakori was thinking. Because in the original work, Katakori has always been the good second brother who protects his family. Now that there is such a perfect opportunity, he will definitely not miss it. Katakori nodded, and then began to become familiar with the situation. Looking at Katakori who was starting to get familiar with him in the distance, he found a place to sit down cross-legged. Ouch! You're here, white tiger. When Carl was flying in the sky just now, the white tiger sensed it. Ouch! Okay, I got it. Carl pushed the white tiger away and wanted to lick his head. System. Does the donation of templates require the consent of the parties involved? Unnecessary. After hearing the system's reply, Carl nodded with satisfaction. In this case, he can sometimes play as the mastermind behind the scenes. The system covers the white tiger's body with the template of the thunderbolt tiger. Covering. After getting the system's reply, he looked at the white tiger who started to twist and turn, and a smile flashed on his face. If I let you eat, you would become fat like this. He felt a little funny as he watched Bai-Hu's fat body slowly become slimmer. I didn't expect that covering a template would actually have the effect of losing weight. Ouch, it hurts. Watching the white tiger's body twisting there. The next moment he was surprised. Can you speak? He looked at the white tiger standing upright in front of him, and was shocked in his heart. Unexpectedly, just covering a template not only lost weight, but also allowed Bai Hu to speak. Chapter 119. Devil Fruit Pseudo-Awakening, Thank You Lord Carl. He saw it right, the white tiger in front of him was speaking to him with his hands raised. If Lord Carl hadn't taken me out of that unknown island, it might not be certain whether I would be alive now. I am able to achieve what I am now, thanks to Mr. Carl's help. Looking at the white tiger kneeling in front of him, Carl's shock eased. Get up. I didn't expect this template to actually allow you to speak. I really didn't expect that animal templates can give animals the ability to speak. In that case, the value of this Thunder Tiger template is pretty good. After all, animals are much more loyal than humans. What did you inherit? Although the system gave King Kong the demon subduing fist, he didn't know how much Bai Hu had inherited. Reporting to Lord Carl, I have inherited the bodybuilding technique diamond subduing demon fist, but there is nothing else. When Bai Hu heard Carl's inquiry, he naturally said it without reservation. Because even the templates and speaking abilities were given by Master Carl, what does he have to hide? Yes, you have to practice hard. Maybe you can become an admiral under me in the future. Looking at the white tiger walking upright in front of me, I still felt a burst of joy in my heart. But then I thought about it, wouldn't it be a bit of a loss to draw this in an unspecified lottery? System. No, the most important thing is the bodybuilding technique called diamond subduing demon fist. If this exercise can be spread on a large scale. Can you write down this exercise? Although there is some uncertainty, what if? Master Carl, I can write this exercise by hand. I feel there are no restrictions. It's just that if you want to practice to perfection, it may be much more difficult. It may take less than 3 or 50 years. Although Bai Hu somewhat knew what Carl was thinking, he still said it without changing his expression. 30 to 50 years is fine. This is an admiral. We have plenty of time. Yes, you write it down first, and then I will build a library on the island. That's right, Zongshuj, why didn't you think of this problem before? What if some simple exercises were placed in the library for everyone on the island to practice? Then the improvement in the strength of his men would be like riding a rocket. Understood, Mr. Carl, I will find paper and pen to write him down when I go back soon. Well, okay, you can write it down and give it directly to Clay. Understood, Lord Carl. Bai Hu clasped his hands as if he had received an important task and walked towards his hut. Bola, is it Clay? After Bai Hu left, Carl took out the phone bug in his arms. Excuse me, Lord Carl, what do you want to give me? The customer on the other side of the phone knew that Mr. Carl was fine and would not call him. Help me build a loft near the cake house that can accommodate thousands of people at the same time. I want to put some exercises in it. Carl was thinking in his mind as he talked. He wanted to directly move the appearance of the library here. Master Carl, can fishmen practice those skills? Clay's first reaction was that Lord Carl was finally going to learn the secrets of boxing techniques such as 5 elements fist and dragon and tiger fist. He was officially handed over to his subordinates for training. Only a few thousand orphans could practice 5 elements boxing before. This matter is not urgent yet. I want to make a contribution system. Those who have reached the system can receive a book in the library. If you want to follow up on the skills, it depends on whether his contribution value is enough. As soon as Carl had an idea, he directly copied the contribution points method for receiving the secrets of cultivating immortals from those novels about cultivating immortals. Understood, Lord Carl. After Clay hung up the phone, he immediately divided some people from the construction team to build the library. This kid mastered it pretty quickly. No wonder he was able to develop devil fruit to its awakening in the original novel. Talent is not a factor. You must know that there are so many Paramecia devil fruits, but in the original work, only a few can develop the fruits to awakening. It's really impossible to develop devil fruit into its awakened state without a certain amount of talent. Nuo bullets, nuo stabs. Bang bang bang. Boom boom boom. Looking at Katakori's destruction in the distance, Carl felt a little nostalgic. If Katakori hadn't awakened armament hockey now. These attack methods are almost the same as in the original work. The day passed quickly, and it was dark in the blink of an eye. Carl sits here and has been planning the next 3 years. Because these 3 years were the only quiet moments before the Valley of Gods. He will make the plan more perfect in these 3 years so that he can obtain the maximum benefit from the battle of the Valley of the Gods. These 2 devil fruits should have somewhere to go. He looked at the painting fruit and transformation fruit in his hands. Candidates for these 2 magic fruits. They are Ship Dr. Jennifer and Cooksmith. Because Jennifer is handy and likes to draw, she should be able to develop the fruits of her drawings to the point where they can be stored within 3 years. And what about Smith? Although he is lecherous, he never forces himself on a woman from a good family. And relatively speaking, he will have a lot of free time, which is also convenient for developing devil fruit. Father, I can control it now. He looked at Katakuri, who was walking not far away. Carl nodded, because the ground under Katakuri's feet did not turn into a lump. This can be a good explanation that Katakuri has mastered the abilities of devil fruit after awakening. Give me the rainbow stone and see if you can maintain the state of devil fruit's awakening. Carl stretched out his right hand. He wanted to try it. Because if the rainbow stone is removed, it can still maintain its awakened state. Then this rainbow stone can be used multiple times. For you. Katakuri was very obedient and placed the rainbow stone directly on Carl's palm. Carl took the rainbow stone, but he wanted to see the changes in Katakuri's body. How do you feel now? He looked at Katakuri in front of him, expecting his answer. No, father, I don't seem to be in that state now. After Katakuri put the rainbow stone in Carl's hand, he felt that he could never return to that state. Although he had some insights, it was not enough to allow him to directly enter the awakening state. He felt it carefully, and then said, Father, I only feel that I have mastered it a little bit now. It may take some time, but it won't be long. Carl frowned after hearing what he said, but he didn't feel surprised in his heart. If the rainbow stone can directly awaken devil fruit, then the value of this rainbow stone is far more than that. I understand, I will give this rainbow stone to you first. Although he was a little disappointed in his heart, he would not show this disappointment on his face. He placed the rainbow stone in Katakuri's hand. Wait until you truly master the devil fruit's awakening, and then give this rainbow stone to your brother. But it's better than nothing, and from the looks of Katakuri, it shouldn't be long. Maybe a few years later, he will have an army composed of awakened demon fruit power, maybe. Well, I understand, father. Katakuri nodded solemnly. He wanted to quickly master the awakening state of devil fruit. Let's go. I've been practicing all day. I just want to go back and have dinner to replenish my body. Carl touched his head, and the 2 of them walked toward the center of the island. Chapter 120. The Problem Discovered by Marshall Hill. Well, I'm just waiting for you. The 2 of them had just opened the door of the cake shack. I saw Charlotte Linlin, Perisparrow and others. They have been sitting at the round table waiting for a long time. As for Davis Redfield, they had already had their dinner. And usually they don't eat at the same table. It's been a long wait. Carl took the lead and walked to the round table next to Linlin. Katakuri followed and sat next to Perisparrow. Well. Start eating. Everyone arrived, and following Charlotte Linlin's greeting, everyone began to feast. Carl, I have something good to tell you. Charlotte Linlin kept adding delicious food to Carl's bowl. What's so good? Carl just picked up the chopsticks and turned to look at Charlotte Linlin. I am pregnant. Charlotte Linlin's face was slightly red. Her right hand rested on the table to support her head, and she looked at Carl. What? Are you pregnant? When? How many? Carl picked up a piece of meat and was about to put it into his mouth, when he was so frightened that he dropped his chopsticks. He didn't expect that Charlotte Linlin would be pregnant again so soon. She indeed had a fertile constitution. Found it today. Twins, I just don't know whether they are a boy or a girl. Linlin stroked his belly with his left hand, feeling the 2 strong new lives inside, and couldn't help but smile. That's right, they are not ordinary people after all. There is new life in the belly competing with the main body for nutrients. It will be discovered as soon as possible. I hope it's a boy. Why are girls so bad? Charlotte Linlin showed a hint of anger on her face. Seeing the unkind look on Linlin's face, he immediately started laughing. No, boys and girls are fine. HMPH, that's pretty much it. Seeing Linlin's face in front of him begin to improve, he felt relieved. But out of the corner of his eye, he saw Parasparrow and the others snickering. "What are you looking at? You haven't eaten yet. Eat. Let's eat now." Seeing the snickering, their father noticed them, and they quickly sat upright and accelerated their pace of eating. After the dinner, he and Linlin came to the baby room. Looking at the 3 sleeping daughters, I couldn't help but sigh. There is no absolute loyalty in this world, but blood is indivisible. Carl knew that due to the limitations of the system, his strength could only reach the upper limit of this world. But it is difficult for 2 fists to defeat 4 hands, so he needs more people to help him achieve this wish. When his children grow up and gradually gain strength, they can contribute a lot to his affairs. If you say this, won't it make me have to work hard? Looking at Linlin on the side, he acted like a little daughter and quickly held her in his arms. Of course it's all thanks to the 2 of us. Looking at Carl's evil smile, Linlin didn't know what he was thinking. It depends on how you look. A speechless night. Sabaody Archipelago. A newspaper was quietly established here, News of the World. After the execution of the celestial dragons, the News of the World's name became famous. It has established strongholds in Sahai and the front and rear half of the Grand Line. Then through the ubiquitous pigeons and video phone bugs, the news business was spread all over the world. Even some of the bounty orders issued by Marine are distributed through the News of the World. There is a small section in the lower right corner of the news. However, it has recently attracted the attention of naval headquarters and even world government. Bang! What does the News of the World want to do? It's really lawless. Naval headquarters. Marshall Hill slammed the latest issue of News of the World onto the round table in the conference room. Kong and several others took turns distributing the newspapers to everyone. Everyone is equal and there should be no oppression. Where there is oppression, there will be war. What is promoted here is a storytelling novel in which everyone is equal, free and harmonious. This novel is intended to arouse the hearts of freedom and equality among ordinary people in the pirate world. But it is the serialization of this storytelling novel. As a result, civil strife has occurred in various kingdoms. Even secretly, there is an inexplicable organization behind it. This caused the turmoil to get bigger and bigger. Several kings of the participating countries have died unexpectedly. But the headquarters of the News of the World has never been found. Even CP0 from world government has not been found. Where is their headquarters? Kong's speech made everyone present think deeply. The intelligence organization of world government CP0 is not ordinary. According to common sense, there should be nothing in this sea that they don't know about. But the current situation is that even the world government cannot be found, and the naval headquarters is even more helpless. This matter is entirely left to the world government. What we need to pay attention to now is that there are several organizations around the world. Although their appearance has made the world calmer, I always feel that there is something going on here. Marshall Hill knew that the search for the address of the News of the World was now completely handled by people from CP0. They have another headache now. East Blue's Hunter Organization, West Blue's Tungtian Chamber of Commerce, North Blue's Tungbao Arsenal, and South Blue's killer organization's Dragnet. They started to make fortunes almost at the same time. I suspect they have something to do with this matter. Everyone present looked at the information in front of them and fell into deep thought. Indeed, the timing of the emergence of these organizations is too coincidental. Almost all were established at the same time, and their organization has vice admiral level and rear admiral level experts. Generally speaking, if there is basically no error, there will be no danger. Moreover, the mafia all over the world seems to be relatively peaceful recently. I suspect there is a bigger conspiracy. Vice Admiral Pate stood up, collected all the recent information from all over the world, and distributed it to everyone present. Indeed, the timing of the emergence of these organizations is so coincidental that it has to make people ponder. The world government has also sent CP0 to join. But we haven't been able to get in touch with the core characters. Obviously they have their own internal ability to distinguish, and we don't rule out the ability of Devil Fruit. The Marines present are not fools either. With so many organizations appearing at the same time, the mafia all over the world also became silent at the same time. This is obviously not an ordinary energy. I command. Following Hill's order, all the Marines present stood up. Kong is in charge of Mariejoy, it's the Marshal. Kong immediately saluted Marshall Hill, Zephyr, and Sengoku stationed at Naval Headquarters. Understood. Marshall Hill. Jeremy, Les, Sander, Cook, Julien, and Hogan. The 6 of you form an observation team and go around the world to investigate these 4 organizations and the local mafia to see who is behind them. The 6 of them were Punk Hazard and the Vice Admiral stationed on Lucci Island. Since returning from the second half of the Grand Line, I have been staying at Naval Headquarters. Understood. Marshall Hill. As for everyone else, they still perform their duties. Okay, let's adjourn the meeting. Understood. Marshall. Chapter 121. Finally found Visalia Island. Sky Island. Visalia. The sun shines directly on Visalia Island after 2 months of hard searching. Ganfuer finally stood on this mysterious Sky Island. Mastering it can complete Lord Karl's mission. His eyes were firm and his expression was serious. Ganfu knew that he had exceeded the time given by Lord Karl in searching for this island. Therefore, he must take down the control method of Sky Island as soon as possible. Only in this way can he avoid bearing the wrath of Lord Karl. I didn't expect that the search for Visalia actually took us 2 months. Ganfuer sighed deeply, his eyes falling on the island, his voice full of joy. I don't know when the news was leaked, causing the people in Visalia to play hide and seek with them. But fortunately, Visalia was finally found, and I can report it to Lord Karl. The adjutant standing next to Ganfuer nodded, with an excited smile on his face. Ganfuer walked slowly on Visalia Island. Every step he took seemed extremely determined. He had been waiting for this day for 2 months. In the past 2 months, although the Visalia people have tried every means to hide their whereabouts. But after all, they did not escape the spy spread by Ganfuer. It is because of the shortage of supplies that people in Visalia have no choice but to buy food from the outside world. While going out to buy food, their whereabouts were exposed to Ganfuer's spies. The spies followed the clues and finally found their hiding place. Haredas. Ganfuer stood in front of Haredas, his eyes were sharp, and his tone revealed an indescribable majesty. You hide it quite deeply. If it hadn't been for this purchase, I might or might not have discovered this hellish place of yours. Ganfuer's voice was not loud, but full of power. His eyes were fixed on Haredas, waiting for his answer. Haredas lowered his head, his eyes full of confusion and helplessness. He didn't understand why Ganfuer had to find them and find this worthless Sky Island. What do you want from me? Haredas raised his head and looked directly at Ganfuer. His voice was a little trembling, but it revealed a firmness. Ours is just a research island composed of meteorologists. We don't have any money or land. It's not worth your while to conquer it. Haredas raised his question, his tone full of helplessness and confusion. Indeed, such a 3-no island has basically no value. But their vision is still a bit short-sighted. Just being able to control the floating and sinking of Sky Island already has great strategic value. Hand over the method to control Sky Island. Ganfuer knew that the reason why Karl wanted Visalia Island was to get a way to control Sky Island. So his tone was very firm, without any hesitation. HMPH, I won't give it to you. Haredas sneered, and his eyes gradually became determined. He would not give up his research results to others. That's right, this is our research result. Why should I give it to you? That's right, which onion are you? Why should I give it to you when you say you want it? The researchers who were arrested at the scene denounced him angrily. This is the result of more than 10 years of research. How could they offer it with both hands just because someone else said it? Their faces were full of anger and unwillingness, and their eyes shone with determination. Ganfu looked at them and understood. He must get the method to control Sky Island from them as soon as possible. And if you want to make these people surrender, you have to resort to some shameful means. But they are a group of scientists who may be used later, so he must use some strategies. Okay, let's have a fun part. Ganfuer's cold voice echoed in the air, and his eyes shone with a strange light. The decision is yours. Ganfu smiled slightly and his eyes fell on a thin middle-aged man. At Ganfuer's glance, 2 members of the Sky Island force directly dragged a skinny middle-aged man up. Then it was taken to another direction that no one could see. What awaits him there will be an unknown fate. Boom. A gunshot broke the silence, and then a Sky Island soldier hurried over and saluted Ganfuer. Report. Speak. Ganfu looked at the researchers in front of him. Looks of fear appeared on their faces, and he knew his plan had succeeded. Lord Ganfor, the prisoner has been shot. The soldier's voice sounded again, looking very cold-blooded. Slavic. Herdis's voice was hoarse from shock, and his eyes were full of anger and unwillingness. Damn it! What on earth do you want to do? Looking at the angry Heladas in front of him, Ganfor smiled. However, there was a hint of coldness and ruthlessness in his smile. As long as you give me the method of controlling Sky Island. His voice was cold and firm, and his eyes were fixed on Heladas without any wavering. I will stop doing this. Ganfu stretched out his right hand and spread it, with a fierce expression on his face. His tone was full of threats and compulsion, which made the researchers present feel suffocated. I'll give it. I just hope you let us go. Heladas looked around and found that all the researchers present looked horrified. Their eyes were wide, pupils constricted, lips slightly parted, clearly frightened to the point of ultimate. He knew that even if he didn't say anything, someone would definitely speak up. After all, no one wants to die here for no reason. The right choice, Dr. Heladas. Ganfor saw Heladas surrender in front of him, his shoulders drooped slightly, and his eyes were filled with pride. Bring it here. He saw the Heladas before him surrender. Order the soldiers on the side to bring over the middle-aged man Slav who was dragged away just now. Slav, it's great that you're okay. Yeah, I thought. The researchers were relieved to see that Slav was safe. They had gratified smiles on their faces, and their eyes were filled with joy. Okay, let's untie the doctors, now we are our own. Heladas looked at Ganfor, whose expression changed in front of him, and smiled helplessly. He didn't expect it to be so simple. As long as you don't harm our lives, everything is easy to discuss. Heladas knew they should be safe now. And listening to Ganfor's tone, they seemed to have a big boss. Don't worry, you scientists are valuable. Ganfor quickly ordered the soldiers to untie everyone, because he knew Karl's intentions. These scientists must be taken under his wing to work for him, so they will inevitably become colleagues in the future. I just tried to scare you. Don't mind. Ganfor said to everyone in Heladas with a smile, his eyes full of apology. Because if he doesn't, he won't be able to control Sky Island, and then he won't be able to complete Karl's mission. We will continue to work together in the future. Ganfor stepped forward and patted Heladas on the shoulder, with a sincere smile on his face. As if to assure Heladas that they will get along well in the future. Heladas looked at Ganfor. With mixed feelings in his heart, he knew that although they were safe now, the future life might not be so easy. Chapter 122, Mission 4. Prepare for the Valley of the Gods. After Ganfor got the control method of Visalia Sky Island, he was filled with excitement. Because this means that he has completed the first task assigned to him by Lord Karl. So I immediately called Karl, who was far away in New World. Bola. Hey, Lord Karl, we have successfully captured Visalia Sky Island. As soon as the phone was picked up, Ganfor spoke quickly. But there was a hint of anxiety in his voice, because this had exceeded the time assigned to him by Lord Karl. Little did he know that Karl had already forgotten the questions he had assigned. Oh, so have you got the method to control Sky Island? Karl didn't expect to receive this good news today. Doesn't that mean that his mission is about to be completed? His tone was filled with anticipation and no hint of blame. The report, Mr. Karl has already obtained it. After Ganfor replied, he quietly waited for Lord Karl's next instructions. He was relieved to find that Lord Karl did not accuse him. Karl quickly checked the system panel, and sure enough, Task 3 had been completed. A satisfied smile appeared on his face. Side Mission 4 has already been started, but this side Mission 4. Karl was on the other end of the phone, thinking for a moment. Just a flying Sky Island may not meet their needs. It would be best to make all Sky Islands flyable, so that there would be enough room for strategic expansion. In this way, you first cooperate with Heladas and others to make all Sky Islands into the kind of Sky Islands that can fly. Karl's voice reached Ganfor's ears through the phone bug, and his tone was firm and decisive. Understood, Lord Karl. After receiving the order, Ganfor hung up the phone and immediately laid out Karl's order. After Karl hung up the phone, he started thinking about how to complete the fourth side task. After all, the mission content of side mission 4 is to survive in the Valley of Gods. He is now the co-captain of Rock's pirate. I think that when the Battle of the Valley of Gods broke out, he was also a thorn in the side and flesh of Marine and the world government. Although it won't be as targeted against him as it was against Rocks, it shouldn't be much worse. So he had to think of a good way out. Moreover, in the original work, the Valley of the Gods simply disappeared. Maybe IM will unleash Uranus's attack. He also had to find a way to deceive IM's eyes, or to resist Uranus's attack. He thought for a moment, turned around and walked to the west of Cake Island. The Cake Island has been planned, and to the east is the exit of the main entrance, where is the chocolate forest. The west is a training ground planned to improve the power of his subordinates. A long strip of town was established in the north and south directions, with the Cake Island's most famous building in the middle, Cake Castle. Bang bang bang. Come on, come on, come on. A little faster, a little harder. Before Carl even reached the training ground to the west, he heard the shouts inside. The corners of his mouth raised slightly, and he knew that this was the fishman under his command being trained. Their voices are full of fighting spirit and passion. As you approach, you will see 100 grid-like playgrounds, with a platform tens of meters high directly in front. In each grid, there are nearly 1,000 people training inside. Their movements were uniform and their eyes were firm. This is also the Fishman army he formed, with a total of 100,000 people here. The other Fishman legions are distributed on the other 55 islands in the Desert Sea area. Lord Carl. Master Carl, how did you come here? When Carl reached the high platform, Long 1 and Long 2 had already noticed it, so they hurriedly ran towards him. How are you training? Carl touched their heads. In the blink of an eye, more than a year later, their heights had also jumped to 1.7 meters. Lord Carl, we are currently practicing the White Tiger's diamond-subduing demon fist. Oh, so quickly, he taught you the diamond-subduing demon fist. Looking at the proud faces of the two people, he didn't expect Bai Hu to copy the diamond-subduing demon fist to Clay so quickly. I heard from Clay that Bai Hu sent a set of boxing skills yesterday, saying that you gave it to him, Mr. Carl. And this boxing technique is indeed extraordinary. Every time I practice, I can feel that my strength and physique are getting stronger. The two of them explained to Carl in detail the feelings of the diamond-subduing demon fist. No, this is a real body-building technique. Are they also practicing this boxing technique? At the same time, he looked at the Fishmen army in the grid. That's right, Lord Carl. We plan to release this technique only to the front half. Whoever contributes too much later will be rewarded with the second half. Obviously the two of them also realized the power of this technique, so they would not hand over the entire set of boxing techniques at once. You two are quite smart. Okay, I'm not here just for fun. Call Jennifer and Smith. Okay, Lord Carl. The two ran towards the nearest grid on the left, and Carl followed them. The direction saw Jennifer and others. Sitting here. It feels really different. He sat directly on the chair on the high platform. Looking down at the Murloc army below, he felt a sense of pride in his heart. This is my power to conquer the world from now on. Lord Carl. Before he could be intoxicated for a long time, Jennifer and Smith had already walked over. Master Captain. Two shouts awoke him, and he withdrew from that state. I haven't seen you for a few days. I'm feeling a lot stronger. Looking at Smith, who was scratching his head in front of him, and Jennifer, who was a little shy, Carl smiled. Their skin had darkened significantly over the past few months of training. What does the captain want from us? Smith knew that Captain Carl was fine and would usually not call the two of them over alone. Do you have any intention of eating devil fruit? The two of them looked at each other. I thought about it, but I couldn't find the right one. Jennifer and Smith naturally knew that their abilities were at the bottom of the entire team. And their upper limit is almost fixed. Without devil fruit, their upper limit might be the level of vice admiral. That's it. I have 2 devil fruits here that I want to give to you. And I think these 2 devil fruits meet your needs. What fruit is Captain Carl? Jenny was a little surprised. She didn't expect that Captain Carl would go looking for devil fruit just for them. The fruit of painting and the fruit of change. Jennifer, don't you want to paint? You can definitely develop this painting fruit very well. With him, you might become a master of painting in the future. He first handed the painting fruit into Jenny's hand, and then looked at Smith. Smith, you have enough time to study the fruits of change. You can transform into anything you touch, whether it's an animal or a plant, and as a chef, you naturally have this advantage. You too can also consider whether to eat or not. After Carl finished speaking, he leaned back in his chair and handed the choice to them. Chapter 123, Painting Fruit. Thank you, Captain Carl. Since you brought us over from North Blue, we haven't been put to much use. When I was training here, I asked myself every day whether I was abandoned by Captain Carl because I was too weak. I didn't expect today. Jennifer's eyes were filled with tears, as if she was about to cry in the next second. It's okay. How could I forget you? You are all part of my team one by one, and you will also be the main members of this pirate ship in the future. I will never abandon any of my companions. If Carl abandoned them because he disliked their weak strength, he would not have added them to the team one by one in Sahai. Being strong has its benefits, and being weak has its benefits. It does not mean that we must be strong and abandon the weak. Then let me be the first one. As soon as Smith finished speaking, he put the fruit of transformation into his mouth. Vomit. He felt like he had never eaten anything so disgusting. It was like the food had rotted for a few days and was mixed with some soft yellow substance. Don't vomit. It won't be effective if you vomit. You have to eat them all to awaken the devil fruit. Carl was a little naughty at this time, and there was still a faint feeling of guilt in his heart. Jennifer on the side showed a suppressed smile at this time. Vomit. Eat. Smith's eyes became determined, and he took a few big mouthfuls of devil fruit and swallowed it directly into his stomach. Water, give me water quickly. After swallowing all the fruits into his stomach, he immediately looked for water in a hurry. I saw the bucket beside me, picked it up and poured it into my mouth. Well, this is seawater, right? Carl looked a little confused. This is the drinking water in the Fishman training ground. If he remembered correctly, it should be all seawater. He just ate devil fruit. I can't survive anymore. I feel like my body has been hollowed out. Clang. Sure enough, in the next moment, Smith was lying on the ground as softly as a noodle, with seawater constantly flowing out of his mouth. As expected, the bucket fell to the ground. It looks like he needs to recover for a while. Carl then looked at Jennifer. Obviously he wanted Jennifer to try it too and eat all the taste of devil fruit. Captain Carl, I remember you only need to take the first bite of devil fruit. I'm not that easy to deceive. Jennifer was certainly not that gullible. She is a well-read person on the ship. How could she not know that devil fruit only takes one bite? The reason why she didn't make a sound was because she wanted to see Smith's reaction. Because she has never seen anyone eating devil fruit, and she doesn't know what devil fruit tastes like. You too. Smith, who was lying on the ground, reluctantly raised his right hand and pointed at them gently. But the follow-up was weak, and his right hand fell down softly. It seemed that the whole person was about to relax for a while. Sorry, Smith. Jennifer stuck out her tongue playfully. I only eat such a small piece, it should be enough. Jennifer took out a scalpel from inside her clothes. I cut off very, very small pieces of devil fruit, about the size of a fingernail. Then he threw it directly into his stomach without letting his tongue experience the taste. Afterwards, she closed her eyes and quietly experienced the power of the fruits of painting. It is indeed a magical power. Dang. The next moment she opened her eyes, a touch of excitement appeared on her face, and a paintbrush appeared out of thin air in her right hand. I just lay down on the ground and drew a little bird. Miraculously, after she drew the eyes for the bird actually flew up from the ground. It became a living creature composed of pen and ink. Gg. Oh, he can still bark. Jennifer didn't expect that the things drawn with wawa fruit could not only fly, but also make animal sounds. Where is this? The true power of the painting fruit has not been reflected yet. Carl is not a person in the pirate world who has never seen big scenes. Next, Carl gave her the development direction of some wawa fruits. For example, get a storage scroll or a storage book. He told her the shapes of ancient mythical beasts, and helped her draw the 4 god-tier beasts of ancient China, as well as some mythological figures from heaven. It still doesn't work. Maybe it's because I'm still relatively weak now. But no matter how many times Jennifer tried, she couldn't draw eyes for these mythical animals and heavenly beings. You can develop your devil fruit better. None of these characters are weak in strength. Even if you can only draw one, you will be the top powerhouse in the new world. This is for you. Look at her slowly tanned skin. He would not let his only female crew member train in the sun all day long, so he gave her a Shaolin Great Return pill. After eating this, you should be almost done. Jennifer was very sensible and did not ask what it was, but took it and threw it into her mouth. Hiss! Jennifer gasped. But fortunately, the strength of Jenny Server has already reached the peak of Rear Admiral. Therefore, this great return pill did not make her feel uncomfortable, and she even needed the seawater to cool down. Jennifer felt as if she could light one of them. I am a little monster, carefree and at ease. I kill people without batting an eyelid and eat people without salt. A child less than 1 meter tall walked out of the ground with his hands in his pockets. I've seen Neza God tier. Carl didn't expect that Jennifer would actually recruit this God tier. Even if Kaido transforms into the blue dragon form, he may not be able to withstand the attack of this God tier. This is where. You know me? Neza held his head behind his hands and tilted his head. God tier, here is. Before Carl could finish speaking, Neza in front of him turned into a wisp of smoke and disappeared into the air. I also wanted to ask about the 8-9 mysterious gong. Even if it doesn't work, you can come here and practice immortality techniques. Plop. Just when he was feeling annoyed for not having a word with Neza God tier. Jennifer next to her had fallen to the ground. I succeeded, summoned for 15 seconds. You have to develop this ability well. I don't want 15 seconds, I want an hour. Carl rushed over. He put his hands on Jennifer's shoulders and shook her from side to side. You know, if the time had been longer, I might have been able to learn the techniques of cultivating immortals, etc. Then I would have reached the sky in one step. Nu. Can. Loosen. I know, okay, remember to develop well. Carl saw this and put Jennifer on a chair aside. The main thing is that Carl didn't even expect to be able to summon the magic pill, and thought it was an unconscious puppet. It seems like. Carl touched his chin and started thinking on the spot. Who are you? Chapter 124. Carl. Carl looked at the person in front of him in surprise and touched his chin. I always feel like something is wrong. Why can't I say anything? I'm Carl. The person in front of him spoke, but he just felt that something was not right. Your name is Carl. Carl was about to nod subconsciously, but then he thought about it, and there seemed to be something weird somewhere. Hey, no, you are Carl. Then who am I? A question mark popped up on Carl's head. When I raise a question mark, it's not that I have a problem, it's that you have a problem. Smith? Hey Smith, you see if I beat you or not, that's the end of it. After realizing something was wrong, he immediately looked in the direction where Smith fell to the ground just now. Sure enough, he found that Smith was no longer there. He thought about the transformation fruit he had eaten, and a funny look appeared on his face. Captain, have mercy. Sure enough, it was Smith. After finding out that he was discovered by Carl, he immediately started running around the stool on the high platform. Fortunately, there were more than a dozen stools on the high platform, so the two of them chased each other in a lively manner. After some fighting, Carl sat there. How do you feel about becoming like me? After pausing, Carl asked the essential question. The change fruit should not be like the clone fruit that Bentham eats. You can only imitate its shape, but not its spirit, right? If this is the case, then the ability of this fruit is really not worth mentioning. Master Carl, you are really strong. I can only imitate a small part of your strength now. But I feel like this small amount of strength can easily crush me. Carl in front of him was constantly touching the muscles and chest of his body. There was an intoxicated look on his face. Stop, stop, stop. Stop disgusting me, change back quickly. He looked at a person who looked exactly like him touching his skin. His scalp felt numb, he wasn't a pervert. Ha ha ha. Okay, I'll change back right away. Smith is excited about this surging power. Suddenly seeing Carl's increasingly stern eyes, it seemed as if the stop button had been pressed. The next moment, Smith returned to his original appearance. You two can join forces. Carl actually guessed that Smith could inherit part of the strength of the changed character. But if that's the case, then I don't know how to join forces. Jennifer also recovered some strength at this time, stood up, walked to the side of the two people, and sat down. What I mean is, let Smith touch the characters you created. Carl paused. He didn't know if Smith could imitate those mythical characters, but it was better than nothing. That way Smith could imitate those characters. Carl touched his chin, thinking about the feasibility of this. No, is that the kid just now? As soon as Carl finished speaking, Smith asked a question. The one just now was obviously a 3-year-old child. What strength can it have? If they were all like that, I wouldn't have to do it. Smith waved his hands repeatedly. He didn't want to become a child. His face and body showed resistance. I see, the law of true fragrance refers to people like you. Carl shook his head with a wry smile. Smith was so blessed that he didn't know how to be blessed. It would be easier for him in the future. Those characters are all very strong. You can only hold on for 15 seconds without looking at Jennifer? You will understand later. Carl stepped forward and patted him on the shoulder. It seems right. Smith thought about it carefully, and indeed, even Jennifer could only summon the character for 15 seconds. At the very least, he can transform into Captain Carl for dozens of minutes. From this point of view, is Captain Carl so much weaker than that kid? What are you doing? Carl noticed Smith's malicious peek and felt something strange in his heart. Nothing, nothing. Smith waved his hands repeatedly, but he did not dare to say what he was thinking. Okay, you two go back and hone your devil fruit abilities. After Carl finished speaking, he turned around and left. I sent devil fruit down in the hope that the two of them could master it as quickly as possible. It is best to develop it until it awakens, so that it can play a decisive role in the Battle of the Valley of Gods 3 years later. North Blue. Hey, Borsellino, look at this. Borsellino and his playmate Sayeti stood under the tree looking at the hornet's nest above. Whoosh! Crack! While Borsellino looked up, Sayeti picked up the stones on the ground and threw them upwards. It's so scary. Borsellino has been adept at using this mantra at a young age. Borsellino's small expression showed great fear, and he quickly dragged Sayeti and the two of them running for their lives. The two of them quickly ran to the river and jumped in. The wasp flew to the water and stayed for 5 minutes before flying back to its nest. Puff! Ha ha ha! After Sayeti saw the wasp flying away, he immediately jumped out of the water. It's so scary. Borsellino followed closely behind. Both of them had reached the limit of their suffocation. They crawled to the shore and lay on the ground in embarrassment. Sayeti has gone home for dinner. The shouts of Sayeti's mother could be heard in the distance. The sky has indeed become darker. Borsellino, then I will go back first. Sayeti looked at Borsellino with a look of reluctance. Because he knew that Borsellino's parents died when he was young, and now he is alone. Living alone in an empty room, Sayeti would come over to play with Borsellino whenever he had time. You go back first. Borsellino has long been accustomed to this kind of life. He stood by the river with an envious look on his face, watching Sayeti throw herself into his mother's arms. Who doesn't want to be hugged by his mother? Is this the place? It should be right here. Borsellino heard the sound coming from the shore in the distance and quickly lay down on the ground to observe carefully. 2 men in black suits came from the shore and walked towards his home. Find it quickly. Once we find it, we can go back and recover. That's right. Borsellino was lying on the edge of the river, watching the two people's figures drifting away, and was so scared that he didn't dare to move. You shouldn't be here to find me, right? After Borsellino saw the two walking away, he quickly took a shortcut and ran back home. Whoosh! After a short tidying up, he put his clothes and the makeup box left by his mother in the suitcase. After thinking about it for a moment, I realized that there shouldn't be anything important that I forgot to take. Nodding, he picked up his suitcase and was about to walk out the door. Squeak. Your name is Borsellino, right? The next moment the door was opened from outside. What caught his eye were the 2 men in suits he had just seen on the shore. Borsellino looked at the man in a suit in front of him, and he was holding a photo in his hand. He turned it over and found that it was his face. I am. What can I do? Borsellino answered calmly while making a vigilant gesture. Although he didn't know what these 2 people wanted to do with him, it didn't look like it was a good thing. Although Borsellino is only 14 years old now, his family situation has forced him to mature precociously. So he kept thinking about escape routes in his mind. Chapter 125. Talent Collection Plan. Kids, don't be nervous. We mean no harm. We are employees of Tungbao Arsenal. This is the insurance and growth plan your parents bought before. The two said as they took out the documents. As early as when Carl was establishing his forces in the Four Seas, he had already begun to order his subordinates to collect information about people with great potential in the original work. And because these organizations are growing very rapidly, buying insurance has become a well-known topic. Half a month ago, Borsellino's grandfather passed away. But before he was alive, he was found by people from Tungbao Arsenal and bought an insurance policy. I just hope that after his death, someone will take care of his grandson. Real or fake? Borsellino lowered his guard and took the document, discovering that the last signature was indeed his grandfather's handwriting. Grandfather. Bang! Borsellino subconsciously let go of his hand holding the suitcase. Standing there, rubbing his grandfather's handwriting carefully with his right hand, tears fell from the corners of his eyes. The two men in black didn't speak, just waited quietly. Should I go with you now? Borsellino read the terms carefully. He knew that his grandfather wanted him to live a safer life, and he had no reason to refuse. And if the two people in front of you are bad people, you don't need to tell him more, just take action. He is still a teenager now, and he is no match for the two people in front of him. Certainly. Your grandfather paid a large sum of money. The man in black knew that since the child had let down his guard, the next thing should be a matter of course. Can you wait for me? Borsellino still wanted to take another good look at the room. Because maybe after leaving like this, I don't know how many years it will take to come back. Indeed, he is right. After he takes this step, it may really take more than 10 years to come back. Of course, you can tidy up your belongings. Of course the two men in black didn't care, they were just following orders. And there is no time limit to pick him up, it can be sooner or later. Two men in black walked outside the door and closed it. Borsellino was a little confused, he didn't know what he would face next. He was wandering around the house. At the same time, I found a suitcase and packed some belongings of my father and mother. At least this way I can still miss you from time to time. Good friend, see you next time. After staying for a while, Borsellino walked out carrying two suitcases. Unfortunately, he didn't have time to say goodbye to Sayeti. Then let's go. Two men in black stepped forward to take his luggage and led him towards the big ship on the side of the road. Where is our destination? Borsellino wondered where they were going. By the way, I haven't introduced myself yet. The man in black with short hair on the left remembered that the two of them hadn't introduced themselves yet. We are employees of Tungbao Arsenal. This is my name card. I am Orm and he is Argus. With that said, he took out two business cards and handed them to Borsellino. We will first go to the Korkia Kingdom in North Blue, and then someone will take you to the Cake Island in the New World. As Borsellino looked down at the business card, Orm told them their destination. New World? Where is that? Borsellino has not yet come into contact with the term New World. He has no idea where New World is. He only thought that New World was a place name. It's a very far away place. Very far, far away. Borsellino looked at Orm's answer. Very nostalgic, I look back in the direction of home. If it's far away, wouldn't the word, go home, become very far away? At the same time, Sakazuki, who was also in North Blue, also welcomed two men in black. During this period, his hometown had not been burned down by pirates, so he had not yet developed the character of being jealous of evil. After negotiating with his family, he was also taken to the kingdom of Korkia in North Blue. At the same time, he left a phone bug for his family to facilitate their communication in daily life. Hello, my name is Sakazuki. Hello, my name is Borsellino. The gears of fate always knock inadvertently. In the original book, the two joined Marine at the same time. Now the two of them also joined the pirates at the same time. Even after months of searching, even Yishao, who was born in Grand Line, has been brought to the vicinity of Gaia Island. As for Moria, Kuzan, Shang and others have also been included in the goals of the child growth plan. If he hadn't been so young, he might have been taken away immediately. Because Carl is also afraid of teaching them bad things, the best age is around 10 years old. People in the One Piece world generally mature early, so a person's basic personality has been developed by the age of 10, and it is most effective to cultivate it at this time. What is that? Kawaii. The two came to the kingdom of Kokia and quietly waited for the time to go to the New World. In the meantime, the two of them also visited the kingdom of Kokia. However, on the night of the seventh day, an island suddenly floated down from the sky. The two little guys exclaimed with shock on their faces. "We're not going to do that, are we?" Looking at the man in black who brought them over, the two of them had many question marks on their heads. A flying island. Call. Stand firm. With the amazing air current, the small island in front of me stopped on the water. Caw caw caw. Sky Island began to descend, and a mechanical ladder gradually extended to the ground. "Come up, little one." Sakazuki and Borsalino were slightly calmer. Then he picked up his suitcase and walked towards the stairs. "Oh, it's within the scope." Borsalino walked higher and higher, looking down at the water farther and farther below. "I couldn't help but feel frightened. If I fell from such a high place, I would definitely die without any body parts." "Welcome to Visalia," Ganfu said to the two of them with a smile. His eyes were full of enthusiasm, which made people feel reassuring. When the two walked onto Sky Island, they saw a young man greeting them above. This young man is Ganfuer in his youth, and his face is filled with youthful vitality. Following the direction of Ganfuer's finger, he saw a dozen children in front of him. Their eyes sparkled with curiosity. These are all children who have been gifted since childhood, collected based on various information. He wants to transport these children through the Visalia Sky Island and send them to the Cake Island in the New World. "You two are the last kids." Ganfu led them to a guest room, which was specially decorated for these children to live temporarily. Although he didn't know why Mr. Carl had such an idea, it did not affect his execution. Then Sky Island took off and flew towards New World Cake Island. But from Carl's tone, he knew that a truly strong person would definitely emerge among these children.